Good evening, everybody. The December 10th meeting of the Tallahassee City Commission is hereby called to order. For those of you all who are willing, will you please join us for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance? Madam Manager.
Dear God, we pause during this busy holiday season and the last official City Commission meeting of 2014 to acknowledge the responsibility you have given us as public servants. And at this time, we would like to ask that we all observe a moment of silence to acknowledge the recent demise of Deputy Chris Smith in the line of duty. As we prepare to exit the old and enter the new year, plant the seeds of peace and goodwill toward all men in our hearts and spirits, that we may continue to grow and flourish as a community and as a people. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May be seated. As the manager indicated in her opening invocation, since the last time we all met, there have been a couple of changes. One, there's been a change to this dais. I want to welcome our newest colleague, Commissioner Curtis Richardson. Welcome to the City Commission, and no stranger to public service in this community, and we're honored to have you join us. We've also experienced in this community our own set of tragedies over the past 3 weeks. As the manager indicated, the untimely and unfortunate and early demise of Deputy Sheriff Chris Smith. And I just wanted to announce that this evening the Tallahassee Fire Department is going to be hosting a benefit at the Texas Roadhouse restaurant off of Capitol Circle, where a portion of the proceeds from tonight's food sales will be established and set up to go toward an account to benefit the estate of Deputy Sheriff Chris Smith. And this evening, because we will be here, Commissioners, at this evening's meeting, tonight's catering for our dinner that we'll have at the break with the graduates of the Neighborhood Leaders Academy is catered this evening from Texas Roadhouse. So as a commission, we are also making our own contribution. With that, Madam Manager, are there any agenda modifications?
We have several agenda modifications, Mr. Mayor. We have one item pulled from consent for discussion. That's item 9.14, which is a resolution to accept the transfer of 5 trolleys from West Palm Beach. And Commissioner Miller pulled that item. We have several additions. 7.01, funding request for fireworks for New Year's Eve event, and Mark Baldino is going to make that request. He's the president and CEO of Elder Care Services. We have 11.01, approval of amendments to City Commission policy sidewalks. That was added. Commissioner Miller added that item, and it's under City Commission items. 13.3 is the approval of amendment to the amended and restated lease agreement with Tallahassee Community College, and that was added also at the last minute, and Jim Murdaugh is here on that item and has requested that we take that item out of order if possible. He has a graduation he's trying to get to tonight. Deleted from the agenda is 13.05, sidewalk prioritization policy update. Commissioner Miller has indicated that she would like to, she's been working with that and would like to see that come back one last time to LRTI. And so we will bring that back either the first or second meeting in January, depending on where you all are on that. 14.02 and 14.03, which were 2 target issue updates, also have been deleted. There's no update at this time.
So is the only update long-range planning, or is that?
Yes.
Was that one of? Okay. And Commissioner Ziffer, did you have?
Could we pull 9.09 for just a brief discussion?
Item 9.09.
Off consent, yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Has also been pulled. Is there?
Let me note also there's a replacement item, which is 13.04 on, this is the upgrade to the PeopleSoft Human Resources Management System. It is a replacement item. Some of the wording was changed on it, so we wanted you to have the updated item.
Okay, great. Is there a motion on the other item?
I'd like to pull 9.07, please.
9.07 has also been pulled.
So we have 3 items pulled, including 9.14.
Move consent otherwise.
Second.
There's a motion on consent and a second. All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. So those items approved. I think the first item pulled. Actually, we
jumped the gun.
We did jump the gun because we had all these items pulled. So let's show those pulled, but we'll go back to the consent items after we hear the funding requests, 7.01, the funding request for the New Year's Eve. Mark, are you here? Great. Will you make your way to the podium?
First, let me apologize. I don't typically dress like this, but I was in Bonifay. Today we closed our office and moved a bunch of furniture. So
Best I've seen you in years. That's nice.
Excuse me?
Nothing. Never mind.
Anyway, I'm sorry for my appearance, but I'm here because we're the nonprofit who's going to be part of the Downtown Association's New Year's Eve celebration.
Right.
And there's a request that the city fund the fireworks for that event, and I was asked to come before the commission this afternoon, and here I am.
I believe, Commissioners, we all have received an electronic version of the request for the city electric utility to fund fireworks. Last year, I believe, we sponsored the fireworks at $8,000. The request that at the
no, 6,000.
6,000.
to the tune of 6,000. I think the request was 10,000.
Right.
And we funded 6,000. That item has not been agended, but is there any conversation or discussion from this commission? Commissioner Miller?
As best I could understand.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mayor. As best I can understand, we are already, as a local government, contributing $21,000 to this event. That's in spite of the fact that you don't see any representation of the city or the CRA or any of the other contributors reflected in any of the advertisement that is going out on the event itself. The utilities, customer services has already obligated $2,500. The police and in-kind services, including waste pickup and so on, is totaling over $10,500. And in addition to that, they're getting $8,000 from the CRA. So I am topped out, essentially, from my own perspective on this particular event. And I think if we can have these discussions, as we indicated a couple years ago when we had this conversation a little bit earlier, it was at the end of November, we asked that this be taken through proper channels. And in fact, Commissioner Gillum had mentioned that he preferred money like this to come from the CRA, and that's where it should come from. In this case, $8,000 is already allocated from the CRA, and yet we're still contributing $10,500 to support and $2,500 for fireworks. So we're getting up there in the big numbers.
And I apologize. Were we given a dollar figure they're asking for? I mean, I'm looking at the item here, and I know there's
6,000.
And let me just say this. I am supportive of the concept, but I am a little bothered by the fact that it's December 10th, and we really don't have any material per se. And I'm a little bothered by the way in which this has come to us. I want to be supportive because I think it's a great community event. I know that a lot of people turn out for it, and I know it's something people expect every year, which may be part of the problem, and that is there is an expectation on some level that we do this. And yet, you're right, Commissioner, we get very little visibility. And then, quite frankly, I think some people think that we actually put it on, and yet we don't. So right now, and I am rarely like this, I don't know which direction I really want to go on this because I want to support it, but I'm disappointed by the way in which it's been brought to us.
Yeah.
Well, Commissioner, I would tell you that you are supportive in the tune of $21,000
Yes.
already. So if that makes you feel better about being supportive. The amount of support that we're providing has increased significantly from the first year. And I'm troubled by the process, basically. And I was somewhat troubled by some of the aspects of the implementation last year when, as Commissioner Ziffer referenced, a lot of people feel that we are supporting, that this is a city event, and when it doesn't go well, and certainly the food service didn't go well last year, when it doesn't go well, we get the credit, and yet we're getting absolutely zero visibility on the website, on any of the advertisement. I mean, normally when we are co-sponsoring an event, always, in fact, I would say, when the city is co-sponsoring an event, then it is indicated on the advertisement by the entity that's putting on the event. And so that's a little bit confusing as to why there's no representation that the city has provided, especially the level of support that is being provided.
Right. I hear both of you, commissioners. I think I'm like you, Commissioner Ziffer, wanting to be supportive. I didn't know about the advertising and the sponsorship credit and where that stands. But I will say in other cities, these are the kinds of events that are kind of sponsored by cities, that are sponsored by governments. And I think in the CRA, we all indicated we actually didn't want the financial responsibility of taking that whole thing on. So I would actually suggest that maybe this contribution is kind of modest, considering that if we were to do it ourselves, that the ticket price is probably likely going to be significantly upwards of this amount when you consider that the total price tag is around, from what I understand, between $75,000 and $100,000, as it's been explained to me. Now, we don't keep the books and we don't audit those books, but if we're a quarter of that, I can imagine that it probably does go north of that amount. I would love to see the firework component. I think it was hugely successful. I think the community participation for folks who can't afford to spend significant amounts of money to go out of town or to attend a black tie event, that it really is a good community function. And so would love to entertain a suggestion around some moderate consideration we might have for the fireworks.
For the sake of further discussion, I'll move $6,000, which is the same amount as last year. And all five of us, unless something very unusual happens, will be here 1 year from now, and I will go on the record that next year I will not be voting for this.
Understand.
Because It needs to go through proper channels. It needs to be done a different way. The funding needs to, clearly it's been anticipated this was going to happen, and here we are. I don't want to disappoint the people in this community. I don't want to be the cause of not having fireworks. Clearly, Commissioner Miller, you're right. We have gone above and beyond, and we have a significant amount invested. But for the sake of discussion, like I said, I'll go ahead and move $6,000 to be supportive of the event this year.
Is there a second? Second made.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to allocate $6,000 for the purpose of supporting the firework display during the annual New Year's Eve celebration downtown. I would, Commissioner, if you are amenable to it, accept an amendment that we also seek out the ability to be recognized as a supporter sponsor, given the cumulative support that has been offered through the respective government agencies.
If we approve this, I would expect if I go to the website tomorrow morning, we're on it.
Got it.
And we would be on every other material, and we would be recognized on some significant level on the stage at the event.
Got it.
Clearly, the amount that Commissioner Miller mentioned, in addition to this amount of money that we would devote, if it passes, we probably are the major sponsor, in which case we certainly need to be recognized for that,
Got it.
if this happens.
Commissioner Maddox?
I share Commissioner Miller's concerns. I mean, I can support the motion because of the lateness, but I share your concerns about the process, how it's gotten to us, and the timeliness of when it got to us.
I agree.
Well, if I could
Commissioner, yes.
just add a few things. A couple of years ago, the prime organizer came to us at the end of November, and some of we were very clear at that meeting that this was the first time, and we understood, and yes, we would respond, but that we didn't like. I mean, this just sets a bad precedent. There are a lot of good events in town, and when it's gone from the parade, the St. Patty's Day parade, they came before us and asked for money at the last minute, and we said no to them a couple years ago. And they then went back and went through the proper channels for support after that. In this particular case, we have provided more than enough money. I mean, the $8,000 that came from the CRA didn't have any strings attached. That could have bought the fireworks, but that's bought everything. What they've done in the past year is double the event. There are 2 stages this year. There are 4 bands as opposed to the 1 and the 2 bands last year. We have no records we have no part in the planning of the event, and the costs are just skyrocketing to the point where they forgot to buy fireworks, and now they send in our favorite Mr. Baldino, who we love, to do the ask. So there's a lot about the way this is coming down that I feel extremely unhappy about, and I do feel that the city and the residents of Tallahassee, through our decisions, are stepping up and making the appropriate support measures. I also know that, and Roxanne Manning from the CRA can confirm this, but I believe that she attempted to contact them throughout the summer to see if do you have any other needs, and with no answer back. So here we are at the last minute, again, trying to find more money to pour into this event when we actually have no control over how the money that we've already allocated is spent, at least the $8,000 from the CRA. I don't know what kind of reporting comes back. I know that Parks and Rec hasn't seen anything related to the overall budget for the event or where the money was spent in the last 2 years. So the lack of our involvement, the lack of the fact that it's escalating in cost year after year, our own particular investment is escalating year after year after year without any consultation. I don't really have a problem with any of that except for the fact that it's December. That's really my problem, and the fact that 2 years ago we had this very same conversation, and in that conversation it was made clear that we have mechanisms for groups to get this type of support, and that this should have been addressed way before today.
Commissioner, I think you have a lot of nodding heads and cosigns about a lot of the points that you've made. There is a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. And Mr. Baldino, you have the task of carrying tonight's conversation back. That we are enthusiastically looking forward to supporting the firework display, but expect a different process when we reach this point next year. The next item on the agenda before we head back to consent is citizen input. Are there any submissions for input at this time?
We do have speakers, Mayor. The first is David Metcalf. He'll be followed by Brian Cherry. Each of the three speakers I have are on item 1301. 1301 is approval to award asphalt milling and in-place asphalt services contract. I'll ask speakers to give their name and address for our record and remind you that you'll have 3 minutes for your remarks.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm David Metcalf. My address is 2612 Centennial Place. This item came up before the Commission last month and was tabled for to be readdressed now. And I think that there were concerns raised about the process for the bidding of the asphalt supply, the asphalt milling and construction work. And I think those have all been addressed, but I just wanted to reiterate what has been presented. First of all, the questions were raised about PV Construction's bid having possibly been unbalanced. That is not the case. An unbalancing of bids happens when a contractor underprices an item below its actual cost so that they can overbid some other item in hopes that there will be an overrun. That did not happen here. PV wrote to the Commission, I believe, explaining its position on that and explaining that last month, and I trust you all have reviewed that material. The other question that was raised was whether or not the way that the bids were evaluated gave undue importance to particular items and didn't fairly weight the items. What is the way that the process works is that the city staff looked at the actual quantities based on experience that they used and assigned weighting in the bid evaluation to those estimated quantities, so that items that they know they're going to use a lot of get greater weighting in computing the winning bids versus other items. Make no mistake, rebidding this process or this contract is going to do two things. One, it's going to ensure that you have controversy every time these come up. And two, it is going to be a victory for those who did not follow the process but nevertheless want to undo a bid where the process was followed and should be awarded to PV and Son. Lastly, there are two contracts here. I believe there's no controversy as to the asphalt supply one, and that I would hope would be awarded without question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Brian Cherry, followed by Tom Gilday.
Madam City Manager, Commissioners, welcome. Commissioner Richardson on your first public meeting here, and Mr. Mayor Gillum, welcome on your first public meeting here. In regards to the process and how we got to this point.
Could we have your name and address, please, for the record?
Brian Cherry, 205 South Adams Street.
Thank you.
In regards to the process and how we reached the point bringing it before you today, we questioned the process, to be quite honest with you. We had concerns with the process based on a documented history with this contract. Knowing that the Commission has an ultimate authority to make the decisions here on this contract, as it is your contract, to make that decision, we brought it to you based on the history with this contract. Now, as you recall, on the 12th, we showed up and I spoke before you on this same very item. I pointed out to you the blatant big irregularities for spot milling, which happened to be 5 times the next bidder's price, which is astonishing. How that's not unbalanced, I have no idea. It was also pointed out that the quantities that were used in this RFP were irregular as well. We hope that you saw on the 19th when my client's representative sent you an email, and again on the 18th that confirming the historical quantities used for spot milling was actually 157 square yards per year, not the 3,000 square yards that this RFP indicates. It also illustrated a long history of a contractor, quite honestly, demanding amendments to their contract. We showed that to you both in the letter on the 19th as well as in our letter on the 18th. These are not our documents. These are documents that are public record documents. These are the public's documents. Based on these facts, we request that the irregular bids for the spot milling lines 27, 28, and 29 are taken out of the valuation criteria and that the lowest bidder is then reevaluated. I think oftentimes you go through some of the documents that we have submitted, and I was always taught to tell the truth, and you'd have nothing to worry about getting caught up in what you said. I think as you go through these documents that we've submitted to you today, you're going to find that there are people that are getting caught up with what they said. I'll close and just thank you for your time today. It's unfortunate that I have to speak here once again, and I just ask that we clean up this contract, we clean up the process, and that we move forward so I don't have to come and speak on behalf of my client again. And with that, I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Cherry.
The next speaker is Tom Gilday, and the last speaker I have on that item, we do have David Brashears on a separate item would be our next speaker.
Good afternoon. I don't usually appear here, but I want to just briefly follow up on some of the communications that we provided to you. And this is in the context of the history of this particular contract and what happens. It gets bid.
Excuse me, could you give us your name and address for the record?
Tom Gilday, 1983 Center Point, Tallahassee.
Thank you.
Gets bid, and we cited the 2007 contract that went on for a number of years. And what occurs is one price is bid. During the course of the contract, the contractor, in this case was Peavy, comes back and virtually wants to double all of the unit prices. There is a contract provision that allows for price adjustments, but the provision limits the amount of those price adjustments to basically 10% of the existing unit price. We can't tell that anybody looked at that provision or considered that provision in approving the amendment and approving the increase in price, which virtually doubled the unit prices that the city was paying. And that's the concern that we have about this particular contract, and it certainly is indicated by the situation with the unbalanced bids, which appear to be clear that the bidder submitted a unrealistically low price for the particular units 26, 7, 8, 27, 8, 9, and 30, when the city was calling for thousands of that particular quantity, yet the history for the entire period that Capital Asphalt had that contract during the prior periods is 300 square yards. That obviously that's a problem. And so we thought it was important to bring these types of issues to the Commission's attention in terms of how to deal with this contract. So be glad to answer any questions anybody has.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Gilday.
Okay. Thank you. The next speaker is David Brashears. He'll be speaking on item 9.07, which is one of the items you pulled from consent, approved demolition of Myers House.
Thank you, and good afternoon. I'm David Brashears, 2129 Olivia Drive. I live in the Tai-Tai high-low community that borders on Governor's Park. And the old house, I've lived in that community for 6 years. The house has been boarded up at least that 6 years, except for the multiple times that it's been broken into by vandals and hoodlums or whoever. It's become in my opinion, a huge liability for the city. The roof has holes in it. Kids get up on the roof. There's graffiti on the house, and it's totally unsafe. The porch roof is about ready to collapse. So I think it's really a no-brainer for the city that you need to do something about this house. It's way beyond restoration, and we see nothing that can be done with it except to demolish it. I'm speaking for myself, but I'm sure that I represent the majority of people in the neighborhood. I'd also like to point out that per the city policy, structures may be boarded due to in city specifications for up to 1 year. This is what we tell private property owners, and this one's been boarded up for, well, the property's been owned by the city, I think, for 17 years, so I don't know how long it's been boarded prior to my living there. I also have been told by the parks people that this park actually is not officially opened to the public. I think after 17 years, it needs to be on the budget. Money needs to be funded at least. We want to keep it as a passive park. We're not asking for tennis courts and ball fields. All we want is the grass cut and it to be maintained in its natural state so that people can enjoy nature. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bashirs.
Mr. Mayor, we have one last speaker, and that is Dan Gilbertson on item 10.01. That item is approve a resolution to accept the transfer of trolleys.
I do know, I think.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Mayor. I'll make this really brief. I just want to kind of, again, reiterate our support in the hospitality community on these trolleys.
Can I get your name and address for the record?
I'm sorry, Daniel Gilbertson, 215 West College Avenue, 706B.
Thank you.
Yeah. Again, our support for this, talking to mainly the downtown and the College Avenue and College Town business owners, from Madison Social to Recess to a couple in Midtown, the downtown establishments. We all want to kind of voice our support of this, and we're kind of in communication with Star Metro and some of the things that we can improve upon. I think looking at the numbers, when you see the presentation, keep in mind that these numbers are utilization of a bus. There's a few problems that we've shared that we think that will tremendously increase this. One is where the stops are, where the active areas are, so people riding the bus can actually see, oh, this is where it stops. Oh, this is where that area is. We can get off the bus. Same thing with a lot of the feedback I've gotten from the community is a lot of the buses are kind of passing a lot of the stops. It needs to be looked at from a completely different vantage point than your regular commutative usage, because people just aren't familiar with it. Of course, the trolley is going to have that look that says inviting to get on. It's going to do 100% more ridership. When you're on the bus with the current wraps, you can't even see out. If you're on the bus, you can't really see what's going on outside the bus. That's a major issue. So I think when people are comfortable about where it's going to stop, when they can get on it, and if that app can show where it comes, you're going to see a tremendous increase in this. And I think the long-standing people visiting Tallahassee is really going to see Tallahassee and see the benefit of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, sir.
That's the last speaker we have.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, we're now going to go back to consent now that we've had public input. Can I get another motion on consent with the exception of items .07, .09, and .14?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Could I also pull from consent item 9.01?
9.01.
It's not that I'm against the item itself, but I wanted to.
Sure.
Make
So
some
9.01 is added to the list of pulled items. Is there a motion on
So
that?
moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 All opposed, no. Motion passes. Now we'll go back up to item 9.01. Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not that I'm opposed to this item, Mr. Mayor, but several months ago, I got a call from residents on Lone Blanc concerning the redevelopment of that thoroughfare. A couple of them were elderly residents who've lived out there for a long time. They've asked me to come out. I spoke to one of the residents just before the Thanksgiving holidays. We were trying to schedule a time for me to come out and meet with them and hear what their issues and concerns are. with respect to how that redevelopment has occurred and the impact that it has had on their properties. I'm going to try to reschedule that meeting for this coming weekend for Saturday morning. And so when I sit down with them and find out what their concerns and issues are, I'd like to be able to bring that back and possibly have those issues addressed.
Is there, Mr. Shelley, anything timely about this that it can't wait till January?
We're trying to move forward with this improvement. I don't think, Commissioner, that there's any aspect except this one property that's owned by Mr. White or his companies that are an issue in the drainage easement that we're seeking here. It's an ongoing project. I'm sure if there are concerns about residents, we'll be happy to address those. I know that the project needs the easement to be able to move forward with that, and I don't think, Commissioner, that any individual residents are being impacted by my request here for the drainage easement.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, and my intent was not to delay this item, but I wanted to be able to put on the record the concerns of the citizens. And like I said, they called me several months ago during the campaign process about those issues, and we just, whenever I was available, they couldn't be available, so we just never have had an opportunity for me to get out there and to hear their issues. And so I just wanted that to be put on the record in regards to this item, but not to delay this item.
Okay, very good. Is there a motion to approve?
A motion to approve item 9.01.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. We're on to 9.07. Believe that is Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Much like the last item, I don't want to hold it up and, in fact, would approve it. I would just ask, I was part of the original purchase of that and doing Blairstone Road, and we had, at the time, grander plans for that structure than turned out. But I would just ask that we put it on our website or let folks know that if there is an interest from someone in the community that would wish to move that house at their expense to another more suitable location, that we give it to them rather than knock it down. It would save us the $14,000 or $18,000 that's in the agenda item for demolition, and the house could perhaps be sold. If no one comes forward, then I'm in favor of demolition.
Right. When is it scheduled for demolition? Ashley or?
I don't know if it's actually scheduled. We needed your approval first.
We don't have it currently scheduled. We were waiting for your approval, then we'll solicit bids and schedule the demolition.
So we got some time.
Okay, sounds good. Is there a motion?
With that, I'll move the item.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously.
Mayor, before you go on, I would like to say that in reference to the comment that the speaker made that the park's not open, whatever we can do to get the park open, because this is one, first of all, I want to say to Commissioner Maddox, I can imagine you had grander plans, because this is one of the most spectacular views of the city.
Sure is.
In the city.
It is beautiful.
And I hope that the park maintenance plan is to keep that slope cleared the way it is now, because it is an absolutely stupendous view of the city. I'm sure that by now the building has been boarded up for all these years and is deteriorated to the point where if somebody can salvage it, that's great, but it probably would be very, very expensive for us to try to do it. So I'm supportive of the motion, but I would like to encourage us to figure out a way to get that whole park accessible to people as soon as we can.
Thank you, Commissioner. Item 9.09, is that you, Commissioner Ziffer?
It is. I've been wrestling with this because I know that we from time to time want to sell excess property that we have, but in this particular case, we've had so much talk lately about possible development opportunities, or I shouldn't say development, maybe even just a visioning possibility for the whole Adams Street corridor from the governor's mansion to the Capitol. I know the governor has expressed an interest in potentially getting involved with improving that corridor. And so here we have a piece of property that also on the other end, or at least in the middle, we have CK Steel Plaza, which, because the blueprint was passed, has substantial funds for redevelopment. We have a couple bus stations, which who knows, maybe at some point might move. There's that whole city block and Vision Credit Union, which I know about 10 years ago they were thinking about redevelopment. And so there's a possibility for something really significant to happen here. And I think in this case, maybe we should step back and take this parcel off for sale. And I know it's been there for a while, but take it off and see how it might be able to be part of this bigger vision. I don't think we necessarily need that money right now. Plus, I think it's probably below market value, quite frankly. And so I would make a motion that we not sell the property, that we take it off the for sale sign down. And let's have that further discussion that we've talked about at CRA, that we've talked about occasionally from this dais, about what we're going to do with this road system, because there are great possibilities there. So I would make a motion that we not approve the sale.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Any further discussion on this item? I assume nothing to add.
Just that at some point, let's decide what we are going to do and make some definitive direction starting January. Maybe we can discuss it at the retreat.
That's part of this, because I think it should become something that moves up on the burner. Our Governor Scott, who's recently reelected, he's here for 4 years. As I said, through different channels, we've heard that he has an interest in participating in some type of process of looking at that road system. Let's see what we can do. There's going to be a new Secretary of the Department of Transportation. Let's see what we can do with the new Secretary. There's a real chance here for us to create something special, just as we've done on Gain Street, just as Midtown did on its own, and other areas of our town. I think Adams Street has great possibilities, so let's perhaps put that as an agenda item on our retreat.
Got it. Mr. Attorney, I should ask you, being that we had a current proposal at play, is there any issue with the Commission deciding to take this off the market at this time?
Mark, you might want to address that issue in terms of the agreement that we do have in play right now, and whether or not it's contingent upon Commission approval, so there'd be no problem if we decided not to approve it.
That's correct. Your motion should be to not approve the sale. The contract was contingent upon your approval, and obviously we can also take that other matter about taking it off the market until we figure out something else as well.
So, Commissioner Ziffer, if you could just restate your motion to
make a motion to
reject
the contract that is before us.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to reject the contract on this particular property. And Mr. Bedoin, you've heard the sentiment to then remove this property from temporarily from sale. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. Motion passes. Commissioner Miller, 9.1.
We wanted to. Oh, there's one more.
9.14, I believe. Was that you, Miller?
9.14. That's mine.
Yes.
And what is 10.01? I'm just confused.
Oh, did I miss?
I think it's on there twice, but I'm happy to do it now.
Okay.
It does not matter. The main reason I pulled this item off the agenda is that so many people over the last 4 years have talked to me about this trolley system. And for the last 2+ years, I have been promising that the trolleys were on the way. And I believe that with our action tonight, the trolleys are in fact on the way and should be here soon. We'll advance our rhythm route from 2 vehicles to 5, and we will join just about every other city in the United States that I ever visit in having a trolley system. So I'm just as excited as Mr. Gilbertson is about this, and I know there are a lot of other business owners in the Midtown and downtown area that are excited as well. So with that said, I would enthusiastically support or move that we approve this particular item.
Thank you. Commissioner Maddox?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I tell you, years ago, I was part of the vote to start the first trolley system, but we did not do a good job of keeping it going. And I just wanted to commend Commissioner Miller for being like a bulldog with a ham bone on this trolley. And she did not give up and would not give up until we got it there. I have ridden it. It's great. The new ones are going to be even better. And we've got, now think about most areas that have vibrant downtowns, most areas that have vibrant portions of cities are in a downtown area that is contained. So everything is right there. Well, we've got the problem with downtown here in the city of Tallahassee where the market rate for property right around us, the highest and best market rate is for lawyers and lobbyists due to our proximity to the state capitol. So you're not going to find the entertainment districts that you would need in the downtown. We have some, but there won't be a proliferation of them. So either through government action on Madison and Gaines, and soon to be around Cascades, or from just spontaneous growth of the market in Midtown, we now have districts. We now have cool places. But what we didn't have before this is the ability to connect people seamlessly through them. So they can park their car and go to all of them via the trolley. So we did not, we couldn't move the mountain to Muhammad, so we moved Muhammad to the mountain. Commissioner Miller, you did a great job.
Well, you're here. Commissioner Ziffer?
Just a quick comment. I second that. Having been around so many people that talk about your dogged effort to make this happen, but the fact is that the current rhythm route, the bus, is a bus. And while it is wrapped in a rhythm route art, it is still a bus, and it looks like a bus. And you can try to put lipstick on it, but it's still a bus. See, I was careful there.
Good one, good one.
So I was careful. These trolleys clearly look different. People will wonder what they are. I think we ought to put a name on each bus, and I think the first bus ought to be called the Nancy. That's what I think.
The Nancy? Is that a motion?
The Bulldog is something different.
Commissioner Miller? Oh, I'm sorry. Richardson, followed by Commissioner Miller. We'll give you the last word.
I was curious to know what this question doesn't have to be answered this afternoon, but I'd be curious of knowing what the routes of the trolleys will be, because I want to be sure the entire community has access to this and am able to enjoy the amenities that Commissioner Maddox talked about.
Well, I just wanted to follow it. Perfect segue. Thank you very much to my comment, Commissioner Richardson. I wanted to say that we have a lot of other areas that we want to include eventually. I just want to get the thing on the road, and that's why I was so happy when we were waiting for the trolleys that Star Metro stepped up and said, well, let's just go ahead and wrap the buses so we get the route out there. We get something out there. So that's been great, and it was a good first step, and now we're thrilled. Thank you, Palm Beach. But I'm very excited that these are coming. I do expect that we're going to have more conversations in the future about Way now that we have 5 vehicles that will be able to expand the routes, for example, up Lafayette and near Cascades Park and around in there and other places.
Perhaps we could, because Commissioner Miller serves on this target issue with me, the quality of life, start to think about what those routes could be so that we could bring back, working with Star Metro, and people in the community that have come forward talking about the fact they'd like to be included on these routes, some suggested changes to what we currently have, because I think we all recognize that the initial route was what it was, and it may be time to address that. So,
and on point, the also original concept is that this is running more around the clock the way the original trolleys did, and that if we decide we're going to go to Paisley's in Midtown, we hop on the trolley and head up there and come back during lunch. So much more to come, and this is an ongoing discussion. So I look forward to that.
Awesome. Compliments again, Commissioner, on your hard work here. I think the whole community will be able to benefit, and obviously to the staff. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion passes.
Mr. Mayor, could we have the second was that Commissioner Maddox?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Great.
Mr. Mayor, I'm
Yes.
sorry. I did have a note here that to follow up on one of the comments that Mr. Gilbertson made, he said it would be great to have a group to sit down and provide feedback into the route itself right now, how we can make sure this what we're doing is actually accessible to the right folks at the right time of day and so on and so forth. So maybe we might consider doing that.
Great.
Thanks.
Great. President Murdaugh, I know that you have a graduation to get to. So, Commissioners, if there's no objection, we're going to move item 13.13 up. And Madam Manager, staff?
As he comes forward, Mr. Mayor, would you like another vote on consent since we didn't take the second vote on consent?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Did we get?
After we pulled it and you had testimony.
Right.
So you pulled items after that, so you probably need another vote on consent.
Right. Before we started these, we ended up doing a vote on all of them.
Okay.
We've already had
Yep.
Did you pull 914?
914 was pulled
It
prior.
was you pulled that, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure procedurally we're okay.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Item 13.13, Commissioners, this is an item requesting your approval of amendment to the lease that the city has with the Tallahassee Community College for the former Mary Brogan Museum on Clayman Plaza. The amendment will provide TCC more flexibility to use the sublease and to sublease the building. The amendment will also provide TCC more of an opportunity to try to get back to the point where we originally started when we agreed to lease this building, and that is for educational purposes, and that's what they are looking at doing with it.
Second.
And Dr. Murdaugh is here. And
Good, Dr.
you have
Murdaugh,
any
you want to
questions?
come and share a little bit about the vision? We know you've been working with community partners on this, and we're thankful for your leadership. I'd love to hear what you've got planned.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me here and taking me out of order. It is an exciting night. We're about to turn out some new surgical technology graduates into our community, and this is the time of year when the college is producing lots of graduates, so thank you for that. This has been a work that has been in progress for quite some time, as you know. It is our intention to put that facility to a higher and better use than it had before in our community. Because it was constructed with public education capital outlay dollars, we have to have a mission that is education in focus. Because we're a college that can have a broader than otherwise interpreted mission. And it is my intention, as you can probably imagine, since I also serve as the current chair of the EDC, that we contribute to the economy of the downtown area by what we put in that building. I can tell you that where we are today is a commitment to locate the Institute for Nonprofit Innovation and Excellence there. That is a firm commitment on my part. The other areas that we've discussed are the creation of a technology innovation hub and other things that would bring things to the building. Here's what we all know. If you've been in that building, and I think all of you have, first, the design of that building is a challenge for many enterprises that would go into that building. And second, the building is so large. There is no single enterprise that can go into that building. So we are in the process of having conversations with lots of different groups, and I almost would describe it as an exercise in putting a puzzle together. All that would allow us to contribute in a much better way to traffic downtown and to the economy of the downtown community. So that's where we're at. We have held off. We've actually had some conversations that did not materialize, so we haven't got all the what I would call the puzzle parts together yet. But that's the direction that we want to go, and we're very anxious to open it up and to contribute to the downtown area.
That's awesome. Any questions for the President? Mr. President, just to say this commission as a whole appreciates you being a relentless community partner. You really are the truest definition of a community college. You put the community first, along with the interests of your students. And so we're hopeful for what ultimately will happen here. The ideas have been bountiful, I know, coming at you, and we look forward to being brought up to speed once a final decision is made.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Miller, did you have a comment?
I do.
Sure.
I'm just delighted to hear your puzzle piece approach, because that sounds real. Like there's a variety of options, and I certainly do hope that one of those options is a coffee shop.
Well, as a matter of fact, less than an hour ago, I was approached by someone who would like to locate a coffee shop there. And I would invite your participation, staff's participation. You know, we certainly don't have all the parts figured out yet, and we want it to be an amazing place that draws people in the downtown area and creates a synergy that you just can't get any other way.
Commissioner Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad to see, too, Mr. President, that building will now be put to its full and potential use. I was on the school board, Mr. Mayor, when we entered into the agreement to build the Brogan well, it wasn't the Brogan, it was an art museum and a science museum. That
Odyssey.
Was separated, Odyssey. Then it became the
That was the
Brogan
name, that's
Museum.
not a description.
Right.
It's a description.
Yeah,
And
it is
so-
a description, too.
I know what the original vision for that building was, and unfortunately it didn't come to fruition as we had hoped. And so every time I pass that building and I see up until now that it had not been used to its fullest potential, I've been saddened because I know what the community wanted back then. And so I'm glad to see TCC step forward and have a plan for actually utilizing that amenity and making it available to the citizens of our great city again.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
There is a motion and a second. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. Good luck this evening,
Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam.
Manager.
Okay, we're back to 11.01.
We're back to 11.01. This is City Commission items. And before Commissioner Miller, one of the items I wanted to address in 11.01, we've had some staff changes. Commissioner Richardson, Commissioner Miller, and I know myself. Commissioner Richardson, you want to introduce your new aide to the community? And,
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do. Because he is a tremendous young man, and it turns out that he and I are from the same hometown. I'm a couple of generations ahead of him, but my family has known his family for a long time, and we met here in Tallahassee when he was a student at Florida A&M University, and I am very fortunate to have him as my aide, Vincent Evans.
Welcome, Vincent.
Welcome, sir.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes, I didn't know if you needed an introduction from our legal
to
staff.
introduce before you do
I'm sorry. I'm focused on my task at hand. I am delighted to announce, I'm not delighted to announce that Sarah Keith Valentine has decided to move on to other endeavors, but I fortunately was lucky enough to snag one of the mayor's aides. That's Melissa Ingram right here, if you want to stand up and say hello to everybody.
All right.
So from now on, when you call the office, Melissa will answer, and she's just been a tremendous, tremendous help to me already.
Awesome. And I'll just quickly introduce, everybody knows my helpmate for 12 years, Angie Whitaker, is now transitioned over to the mayor's office. My new chief of staff and director of intergovernmental affairs for the commission office, Dustin Daniels. We also have Jamie Jameson. Actually, that's the wrong direction. It should be Jamie Van Pelt, who is also in our office, communications and outreach. And everybody knows Akhenaten, also known as AK Thomas, who is up at the front desk. And Commissioners Ziffer and Maddox both have the same very capable aides. Both are here, Kathy and Allie Fleming. Kathy Branch, Allie Fleming. Not connected. Commissioner Miller pulled item 11.01. Would you like to introduce that item?
Yes, sir. It came to my attention recently that a simple resident is faced with being thrown in with a development that could be 200 homes when it comes to just simply subdividing their property for a limited partnership, a limited partition on their property. What I realized when this came to my attention was that there are residents in the city who, for some reason or another, find the need to have to divide their property in half. They're never going to do this again. It's a one-time thing for them. They are certainly, and by no definition of the word developers. And yet, by just that, going through that process, it turns out that they're classified as development. And so all of the requirements that go onto a new development, a housing development, or even a business fall onto that individual. I don't think that is reasonable. I don't think that's really our intent, and this doesn't happen very often. So what I have asked, our legal has been very, very helpful. The manager's been very helpful with this. We discussed it at our long-range target issue committee meeting, and we would like to present this option for individuals under limited cases where it's going to be they get a one-time opportunity. They're dividing their property one piece into two, and basically outside the multimodal district. That's another thing. Those folks that fall into that category be exempted from the requirements to build a sidewalk in front of their house. And the other piece of this is that the sidewalk, the road that they live on, is nowhere on our priority list. I mean, if we have the road listed as a priority location for a sidewalk, then they will have to meet the requirement. But if it's not on the plan, then they don't have to put that one little piece of sidewalk that's basically never going to go anywhere. So with your
I'll move it.
Consideration, Sal, second.
Question, there's a motion and a second. Commissioner Miller, if the property is on the list, is there a option to donate or indicate your intent to donate right away for its future development? What's the...
Absolutely that, especially if they wouldn't qualify under this exemption. They wouldn't qualify if their street was on the list. They wouldn't qualify for the exemption.
Right, got it.
So.
Got it. So it would be any street that is not on any of the priority lists.
Where there is no reasonable expectation that in anybody's lifetime there will be a connecting sidewalk to this piece that they're being asked to contribute.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Is there any staff input on this at all, or if not, there is a
Wayne.
Mm-hmm. Any questions whatsoever? Nope. Commissioners, Wayne, we're good. There's a motion and a second on item 11.01. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Introduction of ordinances. There are no items to be introduced. Is that correct?
Correct.
Great. Commissioners, we're moving on to policy formation. And just as a heads up, we do have dinner guests this evening. The Neighborhood Leadership Academy is going to dine with us, so we'll break it around 5:30 to allocate enough time for this evening's activity. That being said, Madam Manager.
We are now on items 13.01 and 13.02. These were the items that were tabled from the November 12th City Commission meeting. The Commission raised some questions that they would like for the City Attorney and the City Auditor to address, and I believe they have looked at those issues and have a report for you.
Great.
And I might suggest, again, the appropriate process. Once a matter's been tabled, there needs to be a vote to remove it from the table.
Is there a motion to remove from the table? Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. Item is removed from the table.
The items are properly before you then, and if you recall, as the manager indicated, you had asked the City Auditor and the City Attorney to look into certain aspects. And Bert Fletcher is here to report, give a brief summary of his findings.
Mr. Mayor, could I just make a suggestion? Because I'm the one that originally pulled these in our meeting a month ago.
Sure.
1301 and 1302. I think the one that is of major discussion is 1301. I don't think there's really any disagreement on 1302, as I recall last time. So if we could jump, I go ahead and make a motion to approve 1302 as recommended by staff.
Moved and seconded that we accept item 13.02. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. Mr. Auditor on 1301.
Okay. Mayor and Commissioners, as requested, we looked into the matter regarding the RFP for asphalt milling and in-place asphalt services, not the materials contract. The assertion, as we heard again tonight, was that the bid from Peavy & Sons contained certain prices for spot milling services that were unreasonably low and thereby irregular, which would provide justification for rejection of the bid. We do acknowledge that those items were much lower than the prices from the other bidders for those items, but we found that the City Public Works staff had, in fact, contacted Peavy & Sons to obtain confirmation of those amounts that were bid. And as part of that confirmation, Public Works staff informed Peavy that they could withdraw their bid if if they wanted to, but they could not change those prices if they intended to or wanted to bid a different amount. PV responded that they did intend to honor those prices. They also confirmed that they would honor those prices even if the actual quantities in the bid were higher than what was contained in the bid, the 3,000 square yards. Additionally, as often occurs in a competitive bid process, we noted that for many of the 30-something other items in the bid that there were variations in the prices among the different bidders. In some instances, PV was much higher. In some instances, they were much lower than some of the other bidders. So it went both ways. We also looked at the history of the change orders for these contracts. We found that there were no change orders or amendments for the milling contracts other than the price adjustments based on the FDOT index that was provided pursuant to the contractual terms and conditions. We did find, in fact, that there were two contract amendments for economic price adjustments in the materials contracts. That has occurred twice in the last, I think, 4 contracts that have been executed for the materials.
Okay.
Those were also allowed pursuant to the contractual terms, and one of those was with Peavy & Sons, and one was with a predecessor to them, which was Mitchell Brothers. And the amendment with Mitchell Brothers happens to be the subject of an ongoing litigation with the cities. In summary, we didn't see anything in the bid or the process that was irregular. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Auditor.
Thank you,
Commissioner Miller.
You know, we've all probably spent quite a bit of time on this topic, not just this time around, but the last time around as well. And so in some of those discussions with staff, I know that the poor staff, they probably had 4 hours of time with me discussing this particular topic. But we discussed today, since there is so much concern and there's so many questions that have gone on during this process this time, that I would certainly feel more comfortable if we go into to this with the agreement that staff is going to provide us annually a report back that says, here's how close we were to our estimates, and this is why or why not our estimates were accurate. One thing that I had an issue with was the fact that there were 3,000 cubic yards, don't get me on the
square
units, but in fact, 3,000 square yards designated annually when I didn't see that there'd been anywhere close to that kind of use in the past. And our Public Works Director indicated that with the pricing that has been indicated here, he probably would entertain much more of that in the future. So we'll see. But I would not be able to support this without the understanding that we're going to have an annual report where they're going to tell us if there are any amendments, because we're putting the time in anyway. So I'd rather follow along as we go instead of when this comes up again, there's, months of back and forth about it, if that is suitable to all of you.
If that's a motion, is there a second?
You got to restate that motion for me.
I'm sure. Well, let's see. I wrote my notes. To assure attention to detail and accuracy of the estimates and facilitation of the contracts, we receive an annual report as to how things are progressing.
So it would be to approve with an annual report back on the estimates versus actuals.
Right.
Approve the 3-year deal to the
yes,
current select
under that condition.
with
annual
and there's
report back.
There's no automatic extension
Renewal, right.
either.
But the review would just be a review. It wouldn't kick
No,
any.
it wouldn't kick anything in. It would just allow us to get this information as we go along instead of when here we are and, everyone, the stories are different. I mean, the facts, I'm not sure what the facts are, but you have your set of, Robert was called in to look at the facts. Who said what to whom and when? I mean, it's all up in the air. And in order to basically assure that we are not in this position 3 years from now, I really would rather have updates regularly.
And if I may, I think that would be an excellent control for the Public Works Department to track that internally and also to report back to you. I think it would be an excellent idea.
Thank you. So with that attached, I'll move staff recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to move staff recommendation on item 13.01. Further discussion. Commissioner Ziffer?
You know, I hate to gum this up some more. Commissioner Miller, in our budget workshops every year, you talk about the fact that our roads are deteriorating. And I know that presentations that we've had to this commission, we talk about the fact that with each passing year, a road declines to the point where if you reach a certain point, it doesn't decline at a percentage. It basically falls off the cliff. And we have deteriorating roads. And I would hope that in this budget cycle, we have a conversation. Market conditions have improved. We haven't heard yet back what ad valorem is going to be, but that we would do more this coming year and subsequent following years with repairing and improving our road system. So with that in mind, I think this contract, quite frankly, is going to have a more significant level than we're probably looking at. And so, and I've had this conversation with the city attorney, and I'm not quite sure if there's an appetite for it, and it would require the vendor to do it, but I'm not ready to do the 3-year. I'm still, because of the review, what if the review comes up with something that puts us at great caution? Well, we're still got a 3-year contract. So at this point, I'm still going to have to vote no.
Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My problem with this item specifically is the local preference points. The local preference points where if the recommended bidder had not been given local preference points, they would not be the recommended bidder and or recipient of staff recommendations. And we have given local preference points to businesses in adjoining counties that do not give reciprocal local preference points to the businesses in Leon County. And I don't like that disparity. And so that's where my opposition lies.
Any other comments? I just wanted to, we have been over this this particular item, and it's not an easy one. And in our last discussion on this, I laid out why I felt that this was one of those places where there would be questions because of some of our history, frankly, with the award of this contract. Commissioner Maddox, to the point around local preference, that is a conversation I think we need to agenda and bring back so we can have a fuller conversation. We have gone on both sides of that equation, and we've heard from constituents on both sides of it. You know, my position now is we're kind of a regional economy. We're the big giant in this area, and I would hate for us to take policy positions that might sour the regional area and, frankly, sour businesses that do real work here. They're part of our economy who may be located just outside of our county lines. But I think it's a worthy debate for us to have, and we can agenda that. There hasn't been any evidence presented that there's been foul play with this contract, which was raised in the last one, and I think all of us perked up to say, if there is any evidence that there's either unfair bidding practices going on, or if there is some changing on the back end through change orders, staff went back and pulled those numbers on previous contracts, and it didn't result in that. In fact, there were change orders both under the previous provider and also under the one that is providing now. So in the absence of that evidence and any other real compelling reason, I don't see a reason why not to embrace staff's recommendation here and move the item. Commissioner Miller?
Well, as you may remember, I mean, I have no problem with a year contract or a 2-year contract either, because that was my entire issue the last time that I was just not ready to vote for a 3-year contract. After a lot of discussion with staff, they feel like they really don't want to have to do this again in a year. But if that, I just would say that as the maker of the motion, I'd be open to a shorter time frame.
May I add something here? If you do go with 1 year, I'm sure that was what Lou was going to say as well. What we would be doing would be rejecting the bids, because the bidder bid on the 3-year basis. So your action would actually be to reject the bids if that's the action that you would like to take.
Seeing that there's no motion to that effect, I imagine Commissioner Miller knows your motion and the second still stands. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion as presented, let it be known by saying aye. Aye.
No, I'm sorry.
All those in favor of the motion as presented, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
Motion passes 3-2.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 13.03.
The 13.03 is an update on the 2014 double rebate program for energy efficient electric and natural gas appliances. And Commissioners, as you know, we promised you a final update on the double rebate program that was in place from September 15th through September 30th, 2014. The results of the program were outstanding. The customer participation was more than 3 times the amount that we anticipated, and 3 times the amount, I think, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Reese, than we've had in previous years. The participation continues to demonstrate our citizens' desire to support energy and water conservation. And Reese is going to provide you a quick summary on the success of the program.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I'll be very brief. It's my pleasure to present this item. This is the final update on the double rebate 2014 double rebate program that you approved. It was in place from September 15th through the end of the month, coincident with the first annual sales tax holiday for Energy Star appliances that the state of Florida approved. And it was very successful, as the manager indicated. We had actually expected, which was more than usual, we expected about 400 applications, and that would be meaningful for our system. And as of the time of this agenda item, we had received 1,400 applications, and those things range from new refrigerators to washing machines, natural gas furnaces, water heaters, you name it, energy-efficient appliances. And collectively, as we add up the savings, the annual savings for all of those appliances will result in more than 1 million kilowatt hours of electricity that won't be used. And that's pretty impressive to me. So as these appliances are installed, customers will use less, and that's what we're encouraging them to do. And by their action, by the spending, and by the way, the spending, our customers' local spending is more than $3 million associated with this 2-week program. So our customers went out in our community, they spent money, they got appliances installed, they're saving electricity, and each year they'll save because they'll pay less to us, which sometimes hurts me, because I like to make sure that we have enough money, but it's a good thing. It's the goal that our commission has set for conservation and money savings. So each year our customers will save $135,000 collectively. So in a 2-week period, a very meaningful impact to our system. It continues to validate that our customers desire to conserve energy. They desire to defer the need for a new power plant and ultimately make our community more sustainable. So we're pleased to share these results with you. And then I'll put a final remark out there. Since 2008, where we've had these programs in place, our rebate programs, our loan programs, our neighborhood reach program, local spending directly attributable to those programs is approximately $136 million. So that's meaningful in terms of the economy, and it results in conservation for our community. So we're pleased to share these results with you today.
Excellent. Really well done. It's one of the things that I think people in this community have really come, well, evidenced by your numbers, have come to fully appreciate it. It certainly didn't hurt to dovetail our efforts along with the state's tax-free weekend. So thank you for always being innovative in this way. Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to commend Reese and our city manager, of course, for this type of program, because it does incentivize residents to go out. I can tell you my wife and I took advantage of this, not this time around, but the previous rebate period, we were in need of a washer and dryer, and we took advantage of it, and it was an incentive for us then to go ahead and get rid of what we had and buy a new one before it just broke down on us. But it is a wonderful program. I've heard comments from citizens throughout the community that have done just as my wife and I did, and so I want to commend you, Madam Manager, and Reese for a tremendous program and asset to our community.
Great. Commissioner Miller.
You know, Reese, before you leave, I would love to see this same chart that you've given us in the agenda item, and when you finish closing out all the paperwork, I mean, I imagine it's going to take you a month or two, but come back with an added column that tells us how many of each of these people chose to buy. My question is related to the fact that I'm interested in how many people are converting to gas, as we're encouraging them to do.
Certainly. We'd be
or
happy to share.
solar, or you know, some of the items on here. I'd just like to see be able to measure the interest based on what folks bought this time.
Yes, ma'am, certainly.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Gold and the entire department for their work. Item 13.04.
13.04 is an approval to upgrade the PeopleSoft Human Services, I'm sorry, I keep saying that, Human Resources Management System and the Financial Management System, and execute a managed service contract with Cyber to host the PeopleSoft application. And
Move it.
Is there a second?
I just have brief discussion. Is there somebody who can answer questions on that?
Sure.
Yes.
Sabrina is here.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Holloman. First of all, I saw a report about that that one of our employees used to work for this company. Was that employee involved in any way in the selection of this respondent?
No, that employee was not. The Information System Services Division, we actually did all of the investigations, all of the research on different vendors, not just that one vendor. But when we decided to procure off of the state contract, Cyber was on the state contract, and we have used Cyber in the past. We have a long relationship with them, and it just made sense. We could save money, save time. They were familiar with our processes. They're familiar with our customizations, and so we could get this done at a cost that's effective to the city. So no, that person was not involved.
Okay, so they were off the state contract?
Yes.
We piggybacked on. Okay, so the next question is what you're asking for, and I remember when we implemented PeopleSoft and what we went through to implement that new system. Man. I know, I'm old man. But it was
traumatic.
It was traumatic for the organization. So I'm mindful of that in case we were to make the decision to go to a different system. But what was the estimated cost difference between going to another system, another proprietary software system, rather than to customize or update our current system?
The estimated cost was about $2 million difference to go with another system.
So we saved $2 million by updating our current system?
By updating our current system.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Holloman.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. Any other questions or comments? There is a motion to approve item 13.0, accept staff recommendation on the new Human Resources Management System. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion passes. Item 13.05 was deleted. 13.06.
Move the item.
Second.
It's a motion and a second to approve and execute the FDOT traffic signal maintenance and compensation agreement. I assume there's nothing to be added.
No.
All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. 13.07, Oxbottom Crest
to approve.
Currency Agreement.
Second.
Is there any introduction to that?
Well, we can give one if you'd like.
Well, I think we all know. If there are no staff presentations, all those in favor of the motion to approve, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you, Karen, for trucking all the way over here. Item 13.08, supplemental appropriation for fire services fee litigation matter. Mr. Shelley, if you could give a couple comments on that.
Mayor, Commissioners, as you know, we've been litigating a potential class action involving the manner in which we collect our service fee and assessments. Hopefully we're beginning to see the light in the tunnel. We expect there to be a class certification hearing early next year. It has been extensive discovery in this case and involved multiple changes to the plaintiffs, both individually and theory-wise. Quite frankly, the amount of money that we anticipated has been exceeded, but we think it is a huge potential liability for the city, so we'd ask for this additional supplemental appropriation.
Move it.
Second.
So motion and a second to approve. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. Motion passes. Commissioners, we've got about 5 minutes. Chief, I'm going to hate to do this to you, but I don't want to rush your presentation. Can you give us a time estimate? We've got about 5 minutes before we adjourn.
Can you do it in 5, or you need more time?
Let's go forward. Obviously, we had an unfortunate incident that occurred last night, so I want you to feel free to take the appropriate space you need to make this presentation.
First, good evening, City Manager, Mayor, Commissioners. I appreciate the time to update you on some of the things we've been working on. First of all, thank you for supporting the DUI grant earlier. I appreciate the support. That's an important initiative that we constantly work on in the community. There's 2 items kind of combined in the policy of some of the many things that we're working on at the police department. The first is the Community Leadership Council on Gun Violence. We've been meeting since August. The information in your package just gives you a brief update. Thank you. That's right. As you can see in the packet, and the members are here to attend, you can see that the membership of the council is made up from representatives all throughout the community. Everything from civic leaders to educational institutions, certainly law enforcement, criminal justice, not-for-profits, faith-based institutions. It's a collaborative effort. And it's very important to note, and it was one of the things as we got started, that this is not a TPD or police initiative or issue. This is a community-wide challenge that we all have to face and work on together because it's multifaceted. It's very clear that simply arresting people doesn't solve social issues, that we have to work together, find other means to improve our community and to improve it for the long run. And that's the focus of this group, is what can we do to improve the community and sustain these improvements for a long run, so that way Tallahassee and Leon County are better, as soon as possible, and for the long term in the future, and certainly, for our children and so on. We've split up into 5 different subcommittees. They are assessment and strategic planning, education and youth, neighborhood and faith-based organizations, criminal justice and reentry, and communications. Each subcommittee is working on those different areas of responsibility. The main focus so far has been on the assessment and strategic planning, as far as where we should be focusing our efforts, and I'll update you on that briefly. Education and youth is obviously what can we do, working in partnership with our school system and our youth programs to more effectively impact them in the long run, to help them make better decisions across the board, and what programs work. And that's really what the education, youth, and neighborhood and faith-based organizations are focused on. We have a lot of great resources in the community. And that's one of the things that I think is going to make this challenge maybe a little quicker than you see in some other communities that are facing similar issues with violent crime, is that there's already so many good programs in place. We just have to connect the resources to the right people. And that's what we're focused on, is identifying the programs that we know are here, that work and that are effective, and who can best be served by them, and making those connections. And that's really one of the main focuses that we're doing. The criminal justice and reentry group is looking at it as both as a proactive and traditional law enforcement and prosecution standpoint, but we also recognize that our folks who have served their time and paid their debt to society are really struggle when they come back out. and what can we do to help prepare them for that transition. There's the Big Bend Reentry Coalition that I recently met with and spoke to. Nancy Daniels, our public defender, has been working closely with them, again, to make sure that we're connecting the people to the right opportunities, whether it's education, employment, economic education, and all those factors that come into play to make sure that people who want to succeed have that chance. And then communications, actually, Gloria Pugh is here. She's our chairperson for our communications subcommittee, and we're working on public service announcements, a marketing campaign and strategy to raise the awareness and really kind of focus at our target audience to get people to think before they act, because that's really what we're talking about is human behavior. I've pretty much gone through that part. Through the assessment, what we were trying to do is identify. We took a 3-year window, 2011, 2012, and 2013, and looked at who has been involved in the shooting incidents that we've had in the city. And we broke it down by gender, demographics, age. Again, we need to focus our efforts. We didn't want to just start out and go everywhere at once. So we want to see who was most likely involved. And I think it was important not only for the council but for the public, because there was a lot of assumptions that a lot of the incidents involved young teenagers, and that we had 14, 15, 16-year-olds that were heavily involved, that it was very youth gang violence type incidents, things like that. And as you look at the incidents and the numbers, really our main focus is 18 to 29-year-olds. And that is a national trend. That is not unique to our community. That is a national trend where violent crime most impacts, especially gun violence, is 18 to 29-year-olds. So that's our target where we want to focus most of our efforts at to really have the greatest impact. Because obviously, just like everything else, there's limited resources, and we want to make sure that we focus our efforts to the right areas. What we did then is we mapped out every incident over that time frame on the map of the city. And we have the gun violence throughout this community, throughout the county, throughout the city. It's all over. There's not one neighborhood that's unique. And if nothing else, certainly the events of the last 3 weeks has proven that. But what we want to do is we want to really focus our efforts on the most troubled areas. And what we did as a group when we reported back all the information is we identified 2 places where we're going to start and focus our efforts primarily. And that's in South City and then what we're calling the greater Frenchtown, Griffin Heights area, because that was really kind of hard to break up geographically. So those are going to be the 2 focus areas where we're going to focus our primary efforts as we really get started into, now that we have the information, we develop a strategy and an active campaign. One of the things that Gloria's group is working on is a strategic plan as far as that part of it. And as you can see, there's a high number of incidents in those 2 relatively small geographic areas. It will be combined in our efforts. It certainly is also reflective of the promise zone that we're pursuing as well. So these projects will coincide and work with each other, again, as we focus on our areas of greatest need in this community. And then our next step is, like I said, our communications committee is working on finalizing and launching a public awareness campaign. We're working on custom notifications. And what that does, again, is it's really focused on individuals. And that's what we're talking about, is helping individuals make better choices, make sure they have the right resources. Custom notifications is a program that started back in Boston with Operation Ceasefire. They're working on it. It's a part of the component in Chicago and in New Orleans as well. And what you do is you take members from the community and you make personal visits and reach out for 15 to 30 minutes with people that are either have been involved in gun violence, violent crime, or who have just been released from correctional facilities, and say, here's your alternatives. People do care about you. Here's the options that you have available to you in this community. What can we do to help bridge the gap? What can we help make the connections? Again, it's the personal touch. It's demonstrating that people do care, that there is hope, that there are choices to be made. And that's one of the things that we'll be working on, and that'll be one of the components that our newly funded violent crime response team will be working on. That is one of the proactive approaches that they'll be taking on and working on as from the police department as we partner with other groups to work on that. Again, neighborhood and faith-based community engagement. We're working with several of the churches and several Pastor Ferguson and Annie Harris are really taking point on that, and Heather Mitchell as well. And we've got some meetings set up with some of the different neighborhoods to go out and meet and talk about holding small community forums, and also start talking about doing neighborhood walks and things like that. Again, people out and engage in the community and taking ownership. Because, again, this has to be everybody involved. It's not just the 16 people who sit on the council that are going to be able to solve these issues. Youth and school participation, again, education and our young people are important. One of the initiatives that the police department just started is in January we'll be hosting our first Youth Citizens Police Academy aimed at teenagers from 13 to 17. It's modeled on our Adult Citizens Police Academy, and again, it's a way of building relationships, having people come in, teaching them about the police department, what we do, what we offer, and helping build relationships with our younger population and reaching out and creating some opportunities for positive interaction. So we have relationships not in times of an emergency, but on a day-to-day basis. And then the intervention services for known offenders, again, goes along the lines with the custom notifications. Well, our next meeting is actually scheduled for tomorrow. We'll follow up, and then hopefully as we get our unit finalized within the police department, and we continue getting feedback from the community and the rest of the council members, we'll start actively taking. You'll notice more active steps that we're doing as opposed to the planning. Again, we wanted to make sure that we were very strategic and careful, make sure that our efforts were focused on where they needed to be as opposed to taking a big scattered approach. So that's where we're at with that project at this time.
Great.
Any questions related to?
I just want to express a really heartfelt thank you to you and to the committee. Gloria, I see you here. I'm not sure if there are other committee members that are present, but this is not the typical role where law enforcement has traditionally entered. By the time you all would normally enter a conversation like this, frankly, it's too late. It's after something has gone wrong, and you're now interfacing with the public with almost a singular focus at that point. But the issues that it is now incumbent upon our community to solve, you're dealing with education issues, you're dealing with poverty, you're dealing with hopelessness, you're dealing with public health. I mean, those issues begin to compound after years and years and years of neglect. And I wish there was a panacea. Yes. There is no panacea. This is where the hard work comes in, where, issue by issue, we have to build the kinds of coalitions that are going to attack the issues where they are. And while there are those who will scream from the sidelines, this isn't really a game for sideliners. Every sector of our community has a role to play.
And this will take a lot of hard work and effort, and it's going to take a long time to make these changes.
That's right.
And to sustain them. And it's not a 6-month project. It's not a year project. It has to be long-term, because we're talking about long-term sustainable changes.
I agree, and appreciate you mentioning that. The application we're making for a promised zone designation from the federal government, the map that you all have created, if we can address crime, poverty, education, health, and these areas, we almost solve it for the community, which is the stunning part about it, is you're dealing with a population roughly of, that map is 33,000 people, and there's a huge concentration of these kinds of issues in that densified area. And so whether we get that designation or not, I think, commissioners, that's kind of where we have to put our shoulders into it. And the numbers are there. The statistics show us there are piloted ideas that are already out there that we can adapt to this community, and I think begin to address this and Tallahassee's way of dealing with it. We're not some other community. We are our own community, and it'll take unique approaches that are specific to our area, I think, to address it. Commissioner Ziffer, Miller, Maddox, Richardson.
Chief, I want to thank you. The first thing I want to do is I want to thank our city manager, because she made an excellent hire when she hired you to be our police chief. We have, for many different reasons, put you in a place that you probably never anticipated you would be when you took this job about a year ago. But I want to thank you, because you have not only done an excellent job as leader of our police department, but you have represented this community well in the media, and let's face it, you have been in the media. This topic is pretty substantial, and I hate to cut the chief off, so I'm going to say a couple things more, and I apologize. The first thing is I would like to hear more, and so I'm going to request, if it's all right, and the city manager probably meet with you sometime over the next couple weeks. I have time. I'm not sure what your time is like, but I would like to have a discussion because I certainly can't do that here. Because I want to hear more about the policies and procedures that I know where you're in the process of evaluating with that outside consultant, where we are with that. There are just so many things that have happened here, and I am also concerned, and I may not be the only one, everything you mentioned, Mayor, while the police chief has done an outstanding job in that leadership position, I'm not sure if that's the role of a police chief to take all that on. And so I'm hopeful that out of this committee there's other leadership that is coming to the top so they can take on more of those roles, because quite frankly, you can't solve all these problems. And while you are equipped and have great skills, the person that's got to do this, quite frankly, in my opinion, needs to be someone different than the police chief. And so having said that, I have more discussion with you.
Thank you. Just real quick, if you want me to touch on the policy review, just to update you, there were some changes just in the last day or so with PERF. They're actually going to come back the first full week in July. Oh, I'm sorry, January.
Good.
I'm thinking about next summer. I'm really getting ahead of myself. They're going to come. They were supposed to be here next week, but due to the circumstances of the last few weeks, the plans of the grand jury presentations next week and things like that, it just was not good timing.
Sure.
So they will be here the first full week of January, and so that'll push the report back instead of the end of January, early to mid-February, as far as to policy reviews, policy and practices reviews.
And those are internal policy and practice reviews.
That's right. What they're doing is evaluating our policies and practices against national best practices and coming back with recommendations for us.
And one more quick comment. Mayor, your handling of the situation at the Winter Festival was nothing short of being great. I mean, you really demonstrated in our community, and the police chief, you too, of how we are an open community, how we make free speech available to people, and at the same time we expect those folks to do that, to respect who we are. And I thought the outcome was really quite good because there was an opportunity to express freely what people thought, and at the same time we were able to move forward with our event. So I want to thank you for your great leadership of that event.
Thank you.
Well, Chief, I would really like to thank you also for following up on Commissioner Ziffer's comment about the Winter Festival, because that could have been a potentially problematic situation. And there were a lot of people down there in the street, not just the folks that were protesting, but all the runners had opinions too. And from what I've heard feedback, your presence was very well placed, and the way you handled the situation was extremely good. So thank you. My question on your process with the council, you've said that folks are meeting in subgroups. Is your intention to let them meet out and then come all back together, or do they periodically, once a month or so
What they do is what we've been doing is monthly, everybody meets together.
Okay, good.
And then basically the subcommittees meet in between and then provide feedback to the group as a whole.
Good. I think that's a good way to approach it. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And I appreciate the compliments about the handling of the different situations, but a lot of the credit really goes to the men and women who were working there that night.
Absolutely.
Yes, I will say that my command staff did a great job in planning for the event, but I think it goes a long way to the professionalism of the men and women of the police department who handled the situation and were there, and they deserve most of that credit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I agree. I think it was handled very well at your job in particular at Celebration of Lights, and Chief, to your officers who it must have been difficult for, because the protest is about police action in other places, and they handle themselves extremely professionally. And of course, I tell you what, I feel sorry for you. I think God sent you. Because you never even got to be in the frying pan first before the fire. You went right into the fire, and Madam Manager, you made an outstanding choice. He's done a great job. Specifically to the report, I wanted to commend the committee for adding education to a way that we can influence the outcome. When I look at the demographics of who the frequent victims are and the frequent assailants are, the one commonality is that the governmental agency or community agency that is most in touch with those demographics are your schools.
Yes.
So the schools in those neighborhoods that are dealing with these kids, both the victims and the assailants, all the way through, an 18-year-old is just out of school. That, I think, is the key to making a real difference here. So I would encourage you to have as much interaction with our superintendent and the schools district as possible.
And that's where we're really looking for the long-term future change. Is we want to obviously address and help the people that are in that main group now that are actively involved. But obviously, the future change involves our young people, and that's why that was an important component that we wanted to work on.
Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too want to echo the comments that my colleagues have made, and Chief, thank you for all that you've done. And Madam Manager, I'm sorry, you did make an excellent choice in the chief. I've seen him throughout the community. Any time of day or night, he's there. And I think what you did that impressed me most, Chief, was that when you came, you laid this issue right at our feet. We had ignored it. We wanted to believe that Tallahassee was that safe city on the hill, that nothing ever happened or rarely happened, and the report came out and people poo-pooed it. But when you got here and all of these events started happening, you laid it right at our feet, that it's not a policing issue, it's a community issue. But not only that, but you took the lead in coming up with a resolution for it that involved the community. And that certainly impressed me. But, as I've told people throughout the campaign, and I continue to say it, we can't police ourselves out of this. We could give you all the resources that you ask for, and we would still have crime issues in this community. But we need to give you the resources that you need. And so, I spoke with the young lady that's going to be facilitating our retreat. That was my number one issue, was public safety and making sure that you all have the resources that you need to be successful in this community. And so I will certainly and hope that we will have that discussion during our retreat. These numbers are alarming. They're not surprising. We hear it all the time. It's almost, we have seen the enemy and they are us. And we've got work to do. We've got serious work to do with these young people, particularly these African-American males that are not only the perpetrators of the crime, but the victims as well. And it happens throughout our community, but the numbers are the numbers. And that's what we've got to address throughout this community. It can't be the South City area. It can't be Frenchtown or Southside. It's got to be Killearn, Oxbottom. It's got to be the Chambers of Commerce. It's got to be the faith-based community. It's got to be all of us working together. Because when a parent is trying to decide where they want to send their child to school and they Google Tallahassee, it doesn't come up Southside Tallahassee. It comes up Tallahassee, Florida. When a business is looking at where they want to locate or relocate and they Google Tallahassee, it doesn't come up Frenchtown, Tallahassee. It comes up Tallahassee, Florida. So it's all of our issue. And we have got to come up with solutions. And I'm going to certainly be looking forward to the final report from the committee and what we need to do as a community moving forward to address these issues and the kinds of resources that are going to be needed to make that happen. But again, Chief, thank you for what you have done. Thank your department and the excellent officers and command staff that you have in the Tallahassee Police Department.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate
Commissioner
it.
Miller.
And again, thank you, Commissioner Richardson, for the segue, referring to your excellent command staff. I think that one of your challenges at this point may become delegation, because the one thing that I really am concerned about is your burnout rate. I don't know how much longer you can go on at the pace that you've set for this year, but please give that some consideration and some serious consideration.
Yes, ma'am.
And figure out as one of my colleagues suggested, how you can delegate some of this off your plate onto someone else's.
And the command staff, we're all new in the positions. The command staff has been in place just for a few months now. I will tell you, they have stepped up to the plate. They have been, they were out there Friday night, Saturday night, and they are stepping up and learning, and we're all talking and growing together. It's a team approach, and as we all become more comfortable and continue to move forward, they are stepping up and taking more and more responsibilities. They're doing a good job, and they're coming along.
Well, frankly, I have to say that you're setting an excellent example for them, and you're showing them that you're committed and you expect them to reach the same bar that you're working at. So thank you.
Chief, again, I think you've heard really articulate comments this evening, and even after all of that, there's still extremely difficult work ahead. Your challenge is both dealing with the internal processes as well as figuring the outside. And to my colleagues, I think we already know this, but there is really genuine and sincere frustration and concern about the relationship between community and police, and the events of the last 3 weeks where you had the heroism of officers from TPD and from the FSUPD running into a situation where, frankly, there were 500 young lives potentially at risk in that environment. And then 2 days later for this community to suffer at the sheriff's office the first loss of a deputy sheriff in 100 years. And still to look across the nation and see that there's great disappointment around how justice is delivered. Those two dichotomies can sit side by side because it is complex. And so I think you heard our commitment to weighing in here on some of the underlying issues that lead to crime. And you also have our support and our endorsement of the efforts that you're taking with our own internal evaluative process to determine what we can do better on our end so that we can serve the public in a much greater and better way. And Commissioners, this was time well spent. We did go over, but we've got 15 minutes with our dinner guests, and then we'll reconvene here at 6. Commissioner Miller?
I realize that I'm usually the one that wants you to drag things out so the public can have plenty of opportunity, but the next few items I think we can dispense with fairly quickly, and then our staff can go home. And,
thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
So is it the intent to move? We'll move through those, and then we'll...
1310 and 1311.
There's a motion on 1310 and 1311. Any introductory comments? As a second? All those in favor of 1310 and 1311, we'll take them together. Let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes. On to item 13.12, approval of amendments.
I don't think we can do that. That's going to be... It's
going to take some...
So we will come back after the public hearings with 13.12. Thank you. We stand in adjournment. dedicated citizens who have over the last 8 weeks or 12 weeks, the last 8 weeks, who have on the weekly basis come to City Hall or met at a various city facility to learn more about how this government operates, how they solve their own problems, or who they should go to if they do have confront problems. And we're celebrating their graduation this evening. We did acknowledge them just a moment ago over dinner, and just wanted to give them each a shout out this evening for their hard work. Okay, dedication and commitment to the city, and to the extent that they come down, we'll acknowledge them further. With that, we're going to commence. We do have, just for your benefit, commissioners, item 13.13 that we will revisit after the public hearings.
13.12, correct?
I beg your pardon?
13.12.
13.12, we've.
You're right. It's 13.
We voted on
1.2 and 13.12 is what we have remaining.
Right.
Don't you mean
Correct.
01 and 02?
No, 13.12.
Okay.
Right, we did 1.3 earlier.
Yeah, 1.2. So with that, let's go ahead and commence with the public hearing. 16.01.
I'll move it.
We're going to introduce it and then we'll take
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Excuse me.
This will be the first of two, Commissioner, also.
Okay. Move it.
Mr. Shelley, or?
Let me introduce it. You got it?
Yep.
Okay.
This is item 16.01. It's the first of two public hearings on ordinance number 14-046. Is proposed revision to the Land Development Code to allow drive-through uses in specified areas and to add design standards for drive-through facilities throughout the multimodal transportation district, and request for initiation of related rezoning. This ordinance was introduced on November the 12th of this year, and this is the first of two public hearings. The second public hearing will be held in January of this year, January 28th.
Any comments?
We have no speakers on the item.
Great. This is the first of two public hearings, Commissioner. Items 16.02. This will be the first and only.
16.02 is the first and only public hearing on ordinance number 14-0-47. It's an annexation petition of 9.65 acres on Mays Road. It was introduced and title fully read on November 12th also.
One speaker, but only if you have questions.
Any questions, Commissioners?
I'll move it.
Second.
It's moved and seconded that we adopt item 16.02. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously.
Okay,
Item
and
16.
let me since it is an annexation, change the city boundary. Read the title of the ordinance is an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee amending chapters 6 of the Charter of the City of Tallahassee to annex within the corporate area of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, upon adoption of said ordinance, property being situated in Leon County in accordance with the voluntary annexation provisions of Section 171.044 Florida statutes. Okay, so moving on to item 1603. It's an item for a public hearing.
We did.
On 1602?
02, correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
That was 1602. This one's 1603. It's a public hearing on Resolution 14-R-26. It involves the election to be able to use a uniform method of collecting non-ad valorem special assessments for fire services assessment. As the agenda item indicates, folks, this is brought to you not because we necessarily intend to change our collection practices, which is through our utility billing system, but we're involved in litigation. And if in the course of 2015 a court were to order us to change, and again, we think that's unlikely, but it's still a possibility in litigation, we want to have gone through the steps so that we could comply with the court order if that were necessary.
I have some questions.
Commissioner Ziffer.
If we had to go this route, what happens to the up to 40% land that's off the tax rolls in our city.
Well, we would still be able to collect as we do now, even if we had to do it by a direct request to pay from all the governmental entities. We do not think that the issues involved deals with the ability for us to collect from any governmental agencies. Okay.
Okay.
Since they don't pay taxes, we would essentially be doing what Leon County has been doing for years, and that is they mail statements, request payments from entities, and they actually only use the taxation process for those that don't voluntarily comply.
Okay. So my next question has to do with property that is owned and rented to others. In other words, we're currently through the utility bill, and if you're in a renter, you're paying because it's typically under your name. You're paying for fire protection through your utility bill.
Right.
But if it was through the tax bill, then it would go directly to the property owner, correct?
That's correct.
So the property owner would be paying for fire protection for whether it's a business, commercial entity that might be renting from them or a personal. And so all those folks that were renting are no longer paying. And I know in some cases, because this has been brought to my attention, some people might have some long-term leases, in effect, in which case they have no way of really recouping this added expense. And I'm not sure I want to put that all on the property owner.
Well, that's of course one of the concerns that we have raised and are raising in the court litigation, that there are all kinds of short-term and long-term leases with obligations. So you can certainly have scenarios, as you mentioned, Commissioner, where in fact a court order might come directly in conflict with a contract, short-term or long-term. And those are the kinds of issues that if a court were to order us to make a change, that we would certainly have the court address those issues so that we know how to deal with them. And to the extent that contractual obligations could be abrogated in the context of litigation by an order of the court.
Yeah, I'm going to support the measure, but because I want us to have this tool in our arsenal in case we need it.
That's exactly what it is.
But if it ever came to this, I would want this to come back before this commission to talk about if there are any options if we're forced to go down that road and how we will address these concerns, because I think they're really legitimate concerns. And I don't want to all of a sudden, go down this road and not have at least look at options. At this point, we probably don't have to because, as you said, hopefully we won't deal with it. Right. But in case it happens, I'd want this to come back to us to have that discussion.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Commissioner Ziffer. Commissioner Maddox, followed by Commissioner Miller.
I agree with Commissioner Ziffer's questions, and I'd like to add to that we reach out to the Chamber of Commerce, to the business community, and tell them what we are doing here and explain to them why, and ensure that they have a seat at the table at whatever final solution we come up with.
Yeah, and in reference to that, Commissioner Maddox, I have talked at length with Chamber representatives because I know that they had certain members that were very concerned, particularly in the commercial leasing area, and to make sure that they were aware of the various issues and what this was intended to do, and to assure them also that should we have to move to this, there's a whole series of options that we would have, and that certainly we would get input from the business side before we move forward.
Thank you. Commissioner Maddox? That's Commissioner Miller, followed by Commissioner Richardson.
I wanted to follow up on Commissioner Ziffer's question. How exactly are you going to bill people if you have to bill property owners? And with all the property that's off the books, I mean, it's closer to 50%.
55.
And, I mean, it's unaffordable to if we were to change this to the point where we could only bill property owners, the income that was generated would be 45%, technically, of what it is now. So we're discussing our contracts with the firefighters right now and everything. And I don't know how you could possibly make that up.
We're not talking about, in any event, a discontinuance of the income that is coming for fire services fee protection from all of our governmental entities, whether they be the school board, whether they be Leon County Courthouse, for example, that now we collect the fee on the utility bill. Likewise for the state of Florida, all the state buildings, all the university buildings. What we're saying is that if we are not able, because of the court order, to collect it vis-a-vis the utility bill, that we don't anticipate, and in fact the legal issue has not even been raised, of our inability to get the governmental entities to pay their fair share of fire protection. Now, we obviously have been doing it in a somewhat painless way in terms of collecting it both from the governmental entities and from the corporate side and for individuals. When we spread it out over 12 months, 12 utility bills, and if we have to change to that, it is going to obviously mean some significant changes, and it will mean changes on exactly the process by which we collect from the governmental side. But there should be no concern that there will be a legal ruling that we can't collect from governmental entities for the fire services protection that we provide, and in concert with our agreements with the county.
I understand that. I just want to know if we're going to be constantly trying to find money to go to court to force payment from the institutions that are surrounding us that are off the tax rolls and all the nonprofits. I mean, I just can't imagine trying to, in a normal community, not that we're not a normal community, we're an exceptional community, but in a normal situation, you'd have 10, 15% of the property maybe off the tax rolls. But in our case, it's so much, and so much of it is left to the burden falling on the minority of the acreage, essentially, is just a real frightening thing. Who exactly is our attorney representing us in this court case?
I don't think, again, although there are other municipalities and other parts of the state that have a significant amount of government property, upwards of 20%, and they are collecting for fire service fees in those areas. I think you're totally correct that it will present some new challenges. It would definitely have to be a number of alternative ways in which we can collect. I mean, the last thing we want to do is be spending taxpayers' money trying to collect for fees for the legitimate fire services that we're providing. But I would, at this point, I certainly don't think it's necessary to start thinking that scenario. As I have told you individually and collectively in the past, I think we have no specific case law that anyone has cited that prevents the city from doing the collection method that we have been using since the late 90s. And again, I'm bringing this to you only to give us every option that we had in case of an adverse ruling that we obviously can't guarantee.
Okay.
Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make a point that I know you have taken this to the Tallahassee Chamber. I'm glad you're involving the business community, but I would like to ask, Madam Manager, that we also reach out to the Capital City Chamber and the Big Bend Chamber and get their input if they have some issue with this as well.
Agreed.
Here, here. You know, the other, obviously, the big issue for us, if it's not the utility, is the potential for the default rate, particularly on long-time homeowners, who the best you can do is put a lien. And if you plan to live and die in the home, again, it may do something to the cash flow of this operation. So the short version is Godspeed in this court case. It has huge implications. Anything else on that item? And there's a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt item 16.03. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion passes.
And that's resolution number 14-R-24, which is part of that item. The next item is 16 point, item point 6.
Excuse me, just Mr. City Attorney, I have a business relationship with one of the principals in this, so I'm going to excuse myself and abstain. I've already filed the paperwork as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner.
16.04 is the second and final public hearing on ordinance number 14-Z-38. Is proposed an amendment to the official zoning map to change the zoning classification from Leon County Residential Preservation Zoning District to City of Tallahassee Residential Preservation Zoning District. The ordinance was introduced back in October 8th, 2014. We had the first public hearing on this item on October 22nd. So this is the last and final public hearing. And the title of the ordinance is an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee, Florida, designated and including additional territory as an in residential preservation one on the official zoning map of the City of Tallahassee, adopted and established by the City Commission.
Is there a motion? This is second and final? No motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Commissioner Richardson.
We look alike.
No.
No, I'm kidding. Just a question, because I wasn't here when this was introduced. What is the practical impact of this proposed zoning change?
Good evening. Russell Snyder with the Planning Department. Normally, with an annexation, the county zoning districts and the city zoning districts are very much alike, and we don't have to do this. But in the case of residential preservation, the county only has one residential preservation district. We have two in the city, RP1 and RP2. RP2 has roughly double the density, and so this one, by going to RP1, is staying more consistent with the county's RP, and it's the least intense of the RP districts.
Okay, and is there a? I mean, I know Commissioner Ziffer had to recuse himself or excuse himself, but is there a building that we're looking at? I mean, what is it?
It's a subdivision, yes.
Subdivision.
Yes.
Okay.
Russell, do you have in your notes the owner of the property that was annexed?
I believe it was Robert Parrish that developed it. Not sure. I mean, it's been subdivided and sold. The houses have been built.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions?
Move approval.
There's a motion, and is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second to approve item 16.04, ordinance 14Z38, I believe. Mrs. Shelley, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Show it adopted. 4 in favor, 0 opposed, and Commissioner Ziffer abstaining.
Item 1605 is the second and final public hearing on ordinance number 14-Z-39. This proposed amendment to the official zoning map from historical preservation zoning district with historical preservation overlays to governmental operation -1 zoning district with historic preservation overlays. This ordinance was introduced on October 8th, 2014. We had the first public hearing on October 22nd. The title of the ordinance, again, is an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee designating Tallahassee, Florida, designating including additional territory as an in-governmental operation -1 with historic preservation overlay on the official zoning map of the city of Tallahassee.
This is the second and final. Is
This
there
is the second and final hearing, so what you'll be approving is adopting, the recommended action is to adopt the ordinance.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt ordinance number 14.
Just another question.
Oh, yes,
Again,
Commissioner.
because I wasn't here when this was introduced, same question as before. What is the practical impact, and is there anyone requesting this for a specific purpose?
Well, this one and a couple of the others were actually part of sort of a larger effort we had a couple of zoning districts that were no longer on the books. The historic preservation and historic conservation, I think it was HP and HC. And so the districts didn't exist, but we still had them mapped. So we went through this exercise to basically truth in zoning, cleaning up the zoning map and putting the correct zoning district on it.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. There's a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 14Z39-39. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion is adopted.
And Commissioner Richards, I think the next one is exactly in the same category, and that's item number 16.06, the second and final public hearing of ordinance number 14-Z-40, proposed amendment to the official zoning map from historical preservation zoning district with historical preservation overlay to governmental operation -1 zoning district with historical preservation overlay. It was introduced on October 8th of this year. The first public hearing was October 22nd, and the title of 14-Z-40 is an ordinance of the city of Tallahassee, Florida, designating and including additional territory as an in government operational -1 historic overlay, preservation overlay on the official zoning map of the city of Tallahassee.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
It's moved and seconded to adopt ordinance number 14Z-40. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously.
The last item for public hearing is item 16.07. It's the first and only public hearing on ordinance number 14-Z-41. It's a proposed amendment to the Hermitage Parcel 7 Plan Unit Development Concept Plan. It was introduced on November 12th of this year, and the title of the ordinance is an ordinance of the City of Tallahassee amending Heritage Parcel 7 Plan Unit Development Concept Plan on the official zoning map of the City of Tallahassee, adopted and established by the City Commission.
No speakers on this. This is the first and only. Is there a motion?
First and only.
Second. A motion. Move it.
Second.
It's moved and seconded that the Commission adopt ordinance number 14-Z-41. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. So motion approved. Commissioner, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Shelley. And that's the close of public hearings. We'll now move back up to the Commission action 13.12.
And this is approval of amendments and interlocal agreement concerning the tourist development funds. The Commissioners, on September 22nd, you provided staff with direction regarding the terms and the conditions for allocation of bed tax funds, which were designated for a downtown performing arts facility. City and county staff have developed agreements which allow the CRA to retain the balance of bed tax funds collected up to September 30th, 2014, which is approximately $5 million, to be used for eligible projects within the boundaries of the redevelopment agency. Number two, it earmarks $1.25 of bed tax to be distributed to COCA for funding the cultural grant program and activities required in the cultural plan. And also this agreement provides the city with 3 years to make improvements to support the Cascades Park Amphitheater. to repay the bed tax funds used for the demolition of the Johns building. That was all a part of your agreement, if you recall. The County Commission took action on this yesterday, and they approved the proposed agreements. And I believe Roxanne is here to answer any questions you might have on this item.
I'll move the item for discussion.
There's a motion and a second for discussion.
Second.
Roxanne?
The city manager's basically covered it. I'm here to answer questions about the money that the CRA might be able to use. The only difference between what was originally approved and what is now being approved is originally it was restricted to the downtown district, and now it's moving into downtown as well as Frenchtown South Side. We also have Michael Parker, who's an expert on the other amendment, and he's here to answer any questions as well. Staff is recommending approval to both interlocal amendments.
Great. Madam Manager, who led on the negotiation on this?
Roxanne, Michael Parker, and who else? Rick Fernandez.
Of course, Rick had to be in there.
No, he had
somewhere.
to be. If the word negotiation.
Right. So to Roxanne and to Michael and to the amorphous Rick.
Who is probably watching.
Who's watching from home, pulling strings somewhere. We want to express our appreciation to you. This has been a long going discussion at the CRA, at this commission, at the county commission, and it is good to see this thing come in for what I hope will be a landing. Commissioners, are there any questions at all for staff? If not, there is a motion and a second. Seeing no questions, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, let it be known by saying no. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, we are now on to target issue updates, and I believe all target issue updates have been removed except long-range planning. Commissioner Miller, is that you?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, mine is easy because you've already taken up item number 1.1, which was review of the city's policy 600 on the, and I appreciate the fact that you understand that the greater burden was falling on individual citizens than was really necessary. The second item we discussed was what is called the granny tax. I had asked for staff to fill us in on exactly the status of that. What that means is I may have talked to you about this before. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? The gist of it is if I go out and add on to my house for my legitimate parent or relative to come and live there, then that improves the value of the house, therefore improves the property taxes. Well, according to the granny tax, which is in state statute, a county has the prerogative of releasing the homeowner from that burden, from that increase in taxes if he were to do an addition like this for this purpose. It's pretty limiting in the sense that you have to register every year that the person is still living there. There is a clear definition in statutes as to what a relative constitutes, how that's defined. A person has to be 62 years or older, actually live there, owner of the property has to apply for the reduction annually. Leon County chose to take advantage of this in 2003, so that means that all city residents are this is an option that's available to anyone. So anybody out there that has a relative living with you in property that you added onto your house for that purpose, please go and talk to the tax assessor's office. The third item of discussion was we had a report. We had asked for a report on smoking and tobacco use in the workplace, whether we could declare the City Hall a smoke-free zone, and also what was the possibility of instituting a policy of not hiring any more smokers. The staff was directed to bring an agenda item to the full commission, so look forward to that, requesting that City Hall be designated as a traffic-free environment, and consideration of the adoption of a no-hire tobacco use policy. The committee also directed that that the Department of Human Resources bring back an agenda item to the Target Issue Committee regarding the impacts of the use of incentives and disincentives related to health care. Every little bit helps. When I went to the National League of Cities, one of the most valuable sessions I attended had to do with what the tax assessor's office in Palm Beach County is doing, and you're going to hear more about that from me. But some governments are taking employee health extremely seriously, mainly because of how it affects productivity and cost to taxpayers. Mm-hmm. So everybody benefits in a way, even though it's hard sometimes. Item 4 was discussion of amending the city sign code regulations in several ways where problems have cropped up. Karen Jumaville, Director of Growth Management, and Glenn Dodson, the Building Inspector, both presented a draft ordinance. And the 4 points that were addressed were signs in the multimodal transportation district, multifamily development signs, sign band limitations, signs on arterial roadways in the multimodal district, and all of this you're going to see come forward because staff was directed to take the ordinance amending the sign code to the full City Commission. None of these changes were radical changes, and most of them are changes that are in response to the way the multimodal district is being built out. Mm-hmm. For one example is that on the sign banning, one example was that now the buildings have to be up next to the street, and you can put a sign on the front. Well, that means that the parking is in the back, and sometime you'll park and get out of your car, and you'll be looking for the store or business or restaurant that you want to visit, and the sign is 2 feet by 6 feet or 2 by 3 because that's as big as it can be, and you're parked 4 rows away and you can't see it. So things like that they've discovered as they've been implementing are going to be part of this, and so you'll see more detail later. And that's it.
Good. Thank you, Commissioner. Good report.
Do you have anything to add?
No, I think it's perfect.
Thank you, Commissioners Miller and Maddox, for your work on that target issue. Commissioners, we are now at unagendaed speakers. Mr. Cook, are there any?
We do have speakers this evening, Mayor. The first is Pamela Chamberlain. She would be followed by Amy Datz. So I'll ask speakers, as with our citizen comment period, to approach this microphone to my right, and you'll have 3 minutes for your remarks, and we would appreciate your name and address for the record.
Thank you. I'm Pamela Chamberlain. I live out in Killearn, 3711 Shamrock Street West. And I came tonight, I've already adapted what I was going to talk about, to speak as a mother and a grandmother about my profound concern for safety and equality and justice in Tallahassee. I've lived here for many generations. Let me see, and I'm also a small business owner. My statement of concern is started out with Columbine quite a few years ago and really got ratcheted up with Sandy Hook. And this recent epidemic, I don't want to be too exaggerating here, of the shooting of unarmed young black men. I'm just profoundly concerned, and we must take action. So you can imagine, to my delight, I didn't even know it was on the agenda, 1309, that you all are on the ball. So, Madam City Manager, and welcome, Mr. Mayor, and welcome back, Commissioner. Welcome to all of you all and everything. I'm so proud of our community and thankful of your efforts that we are ahead of the ball game and tragically not enough preemptive on this. But I want to be part of it. I'm a medical social worker. This is a complex social system problem. Mm-hmm. I volunteer in nonviolent communication over at Palma Monroe Teen Center. This is a human-centric training program to address complex social system issues. Also, as part of my medical healthcare work as a medical social worker, I'm a mindfulness trainer, trained at Duke University. So I know that the U.S. military uses mindfulness training for pre- and post-combat issues. Mindfulness training is used for emergency workers, including police force. So in our community already, and we have several people doing mindfulness work in Tallahassee out of FSU. TMH, Family Practice Residency Program, is involved in mindfulness training, as am I. So we have 2 human-centric resources here in Tallahassee. On Monday, I called up the city commission. I've never come before y'all before and everything, and I talked with Doc Nocton, and he's just a wonderful young man, as you all already know, and he's been a great resource to me. First, he said, you might be interested in the council on violence, gun violence. And I had a personal reaction. When I was 4 years old, my father held me at gunpoint in his lap in a hostage situation with my mother. So I know what violence is at a personal level, and it happens to people of all ages, and it's not okay. I'm lucky enough, after my mother saved the lives of my sister and myself, she kidnapped us then to get us away from my father. That's how I came to Florida when I was 5 years old. That this is something that it is complex, and we can do something about it. And I'm on my caution light. So what I came tonight, before I heard this wonderful presentation by the chief of police, I'm asking the city commission to partner with the whole community to clearly define our intentions for every individual in this community, not just, and I'm just going to say this like I feel it, not just the white people, not just people out in Clarn. With these beautiful teenagers I volunteer with at Palmer Monroe, every citizen in this community has a need for safety, a need for justice, a need for equality, and to invite the city commission to partner with community members to investigate and consider human-centric resources. So I will plug into, even though gun violence makes me nervous, I'll plug into that committee. I'm welcome to talk with anybody else. I have a book on mindfulness and its applications to police and military. I'll be glad to give anybody a copy who would like, so let me know. And thank you. My red light's on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Would you mind, maybe one of our staff members, I'd like to get some contact information from you. I'm sure the other commissioners would, so that we could share that.
All right. I'm going to stay till the end of the
Melissa, thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Ms. Chamberlain. Your comments have... Well, sometimes it's safety. It ought to be personal. And the other words that you used are not throwaway words. Justice is something I think we all stand behind. And NVC communication that Dr. Cindy Bigby has been speaking frequently about, we hope to try to see that infiltrated in all of our community centers where our young people, go to play and could learn new skills on how to communicate. So thank you for coming down here tonight and for your passion.
We're currently accessing Palmer Monroe. When I sit on panels with them, they are so beautiful, so young. Yeah. And they have done something and been convicted. They've made a mistake. I understand as a medical social worker where they come from, but we owe it to them also.
We are agreed, and thank you again for coming this evening. Next speaker?
The next speaker is Amy Datz, and she will be followed by Lee Harvey.
Hi. Hi, my name is Amy Datz, and I live at 1130 Crestview Avenue in a very nice neighborhood.
It is?
Feels my neighbor. We're at an important moment in the debate over fracking in the Florida Everglades and in other areas of Florida, including our Panhandle. Senators Darren Soto and Dwight Bullard have introduced Senate Bill 166, a statewide ban on this dangerous threat to our land and water and the health of our communities. I'm requesting that you pass the resolution that I have provided here today, and I've provided a copy to each one of you, suggesting that you write to the governor and Florida legislature, that would be the head of the House and Senate, saying you support a ban on fracking in Florida, and let's build momentum behind this important legislation. I, along with many citizens in Tallahassee, have been fighting fracking in our state throughout this past year. I've gotten over 1,000 citizens to write postcards to legislators and other state and federal agencies showing their support on banning fracking in Florida. We've helped demonstrate that it's possible to make progress on this critical issue despite a governor and legislative leadership soaked in big oil money. Earlier this year, we helped stop 2 bills in the legislature that would have denied the public's right to know that what chemicals are pumped into the ground during the fracking process. When an illegal acid fracking operation was discovered on endangered panther habitat in the western Everglades, the Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, which is really don't expect protection, was convinced to pull the drilling permits for the offending company, Hughes Company. The victories we have had an important impact on the debate over fracking. Now that a statewide ban has been introduced, we can't afford to let it up now. Let's support Senators Soto and Bullard in this critical effort. Tell the legislature you support a statewide ban on fracking to protect the Florida we love. As Senator Bill Nelson wrote to state environmental officials over the summer, we cannot tolerate expanded industrial drilling activities that pose a threat to the drinking and surface water so close to the Florida Everglades and so close to our aquifer. The same goes for the rest of our state. Thank you in advance for your help. Your support will help protect our children and grandchildren because there are over 720 toxic chemicals in the millions and perhaps billions of gallons of fresh water required to facilitate the fracking process. This water will never be clean again.
Thank you, Amy. It's not likely we'll be able to take this item up this evening. Would like to obviously encourage our colleagues in the time between now and when we convene again in January, if you feel compelled to write your own letters to the legislature. Senator Bill Nelson has been pretty outspoken on this issue, and obviously we want to thank you for showing up tonight and bringing this sample language that we can take a look at. And I would also suggest that we forward this on to the EPR staff for to see that this is consistent with policies we've adopted here at the government.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Amy.
Thank you. And I understand if you do want to vote on it in January, I should contact Dustin Daniels, and he'll put us on the agenda.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Miller, sorry.
What Amy brings up is really falls in the category of managing our lobbyists, and I'm expecting that in January we're going to begin the process. We'll go through in that month the process of identifying the topics we want to direct our lobbyists to work on for this session. I mean, we got a very well-defined way that we go about figuring this out, and so your coming tonight is really helpful and really timely. I believe I've sent in one of your postcards already, and I believe I've sent in a letter to our past representative, if not this one. So I'm sure we'll have some constructive discussion about that. So please follow through in January with us and keep everyone's eye on the ball.
And I'll bring Kim Ross, who is the head of Rethink Energy, who can speak more on the specifics and the technicalities involving fracking.
Okay. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you all.
Having traveled around the state, as some before me have done for the League of Cities, to gain support for leadership in that organization, it doesn't matter what league you go to. Water quality or quantity, water quality or quantity is the number one issue facing every single municipality in this state. And I know that our legislature, whether they want to stick their head in the sand or not, water quality and quantity is going to become and is a huge issue that's going to be going before this legislature this coming year. So I'm certainly going to look into supplying that letter and sending it on, and I urge you to reach out to Dustin. And as Commissioner Miller said, I think discussing that from a lobbying standpoint is something we need to see if it's consistent with what we're doing. And if so, then hopefully follow through on that. Great. So thank you for coming.
I would like to share that the Florida League of Cities has taken on water quality and water quantity protection as one of their top 10 items that they'll be lobbying on too.
Awesome. So. Great. Thank you for that. Next speaker.
Last speaker we have tonight, Mayor, is Lee Harvey.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I come before you to ask for your consideration of refunding me a $400 expense I incurred as a result of my vehicle being towed for a code violation. I received a notice of code violation on August 15, 2014. As I was checking the property that received the code violation on 9/19, there was a removal warning on my vehicle scheduled to be towed on September 19, 2014. I immediately took the notice with me to the Supervisor of Code Enforcement, Mr. Lundquist. He explained to me that the tow date will be early October. And the only thing I needed to do was purchase a current tag for the vehicle. Because of a possible theft of the tag, I asked him if they could verify my purchase online. And he said yes. I purchased the tag the next day, September the 20th, and I went by the property several times to see if it had been towed. However, on October the 30th, I received a notice from Hobkirk Towing that by order from the city of Tallahassee, they towed my vehicle on October 23rd. I immediately went to retrieve my vehicle from Ability Tow because the charges as a result of the pickup by the city and the storage fee of $20 a day plus the $55 to have my vehicle towed back to the property came to $403.60. I spoke to Mr. Michael Parker, Director of Community Development and Code Enforcement Division. He set up a meeting with the Code Enforcement Supervisor and Code Enforcement Officer. Mr. Parker said to me at this meeting there were, let me correct myself. At the meeting, from my view, there were errors made on both parts, meaning the Code Enforcement Division and myself. The Code Enforcement Supervisor stated that I only needed to purchase a current tag and they can verify the purchase online. At the meeting, he said they did not have that capability.
Excuse me, your time's expired.
Big part?
Your time. Your time is expired. You want to wrap up your comments?
Okay. So after this meeting, thank you for reminding me. As I said, I concluded there were errors on both parts. And since we have a great staff, we look to you, our elected commissioners, to bridge that gap. Therefore, again, I ask you for your consideration of refunding me my $400 expense. And, of course, let me give you that case number.
Mr. Harvey, if you give that to me, if you'd hand me all that information, we'll take a very, very close look at that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey, for coming this evening, and the manager will carry it from here. Okay, have a good one. And I believe that was the last. That's correct. The last speaker. Commissioners, we're now on information sharing. We'll start the queue. Commissioner Ziffer or Commissioner Richardson. Sharing of.
Anything you want?
You made it. You made it through your first night.
It's been an interesting meeting,
and I've learned a lot. I know that I still have a lot to learn, but I look forward to good tutelage from you all, and we'll come up to speed in a hurry. And I just look forward to working with you all to move our city forward.
Perfect. Same
We've got
here.
a great team.
Same here. And Commissioner Richardson, appreciate those comments, and sharing of ideas on a regular basis is really our time, because Sunshine, we're not able to talk face to face on a lot of things. For you to surface those ideas or those issues, or some of our colleagues have taken to introducing us to our four-legged friends during this hour, is really your opportunity to present ideas to the commission that are otherwise not yet agendaed or are on the soft and fluffy side of things. So welcome to the commission.
But you're not required to do it every time.
Yeah.
Whether you want to.
It's whether you want to or not. Commissioner Ziffer.
Well, I have a couple of things. The first is you can thank our mayor for the Palmer Monroe Teen Center.
Yes, yeah.
Through his effort and commitment and now turn around on you, dogged effort,
Yeah, really.
we were able to open that center. So all the work that's being done there,
Appreciate that.
he had a tremendous amount to do with. So thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate that.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Commissioner Richardson, it has been a pleasure sitting next to you. You have been reserved, and you have spoken, and I expect that you'll be talking a lot more over the next several years. Byron Dobson, thank you for sitting through our entire meeting, taking notes, being attentive. I can tell you that I'm extremely pleased that the Tallahassee Democrat is here and that you are covering city government. You are a journalist with very few peers at the level you are, so we're glad that you're part of our team now and being here covering what we do. I do have one thought that, and it's probably in advance of our retreat coming up. And it has to do with something that the process is, for me, has been not great. And so I'm going to suggest, and I'm going to get into a second, that perhaps long-range planning look at this. When we made some changes in succession, we pretty much came from within. When we changed auditors, Sam McCall, Bert Fletcher came up, and Jim Cook came up, and Gary Herndon was our past, and Lou Shelley came up. And whatever happens in the future with any of those and our appointed officials, I would like us to perhaps look at, because clearly we have some kind of effort where we move somebody up from within. Now, that's not official, but it seems like that's something we've done in the past. So I'm not sure. It seems like long-range planning may do that, but it is a process that I think we probably need to look at, and I'm hopeful that maybe this commission would agree to at least pass it on to them to take a look at. And the only other thing that I have to say is spay and neuter your animal and have a great Christmas and Hanukkah and whatever holiday you celebrate, and be safe on New Year's.
Awesome. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Miller.
Well, I'm flanked by the two animal rights activists up here. I wanted to, mainly because one of the things on my list was give a shout out to the Animal Services Center. My husband and I are both looking for animals, for dogs. We've lost both of our dogs this year, and that's resulted in my visiting the Animal Services Center at least, 4 times in the last 6 weeks, and sometimes every week. Not only that, it's included shopping online and looking at the pets, but I just want to say how clean and well cared for the animals look, and how, I've just really been impressed. So wanted to just let the rest of the public know that this is a great facility, and I'm very proud of it. Now, if I can just find an animal, it'll be good. Part of the problem is that we have 2 different concepts of what kind of animal we need.
You need 2 animals.
We've come to that conclusion. That'll make 5 altogether. The 2 of the others, the cats, already came from the shelter. All right, so that said, I want to also thank you, Mayor Gillum, for running an exceptionally efficient meeting. And you, commissioners, all of you, because we had a daunting list of items to address tonight, and we went through it very thoroughly, very efficiently, and there were bets being taken as to when we would gavel the meeting closed. We're easily an hour ahead of the earliest one, and so I think that that really
kudos
lends itself to compliments to you all for your work effort and the way you've handled the meeting tonight. My next issue is with AK is in the front office. I heard the speaker mention that she'd called. One of the things that I had squared away with the front office before was that I wanted to be notified when anybody contacts the city. I want to be notified, and we've worked out the email system through the new staff. But when someone calls, I want to know about it. So please develop some sort of system to give us a heads up that you got a call from someone who had quite a lot of valuable information to offer, even if it's just a short email whenever you get these. You don't have to let us know every time. If somebody has a branch down on the wire, you can fix that easily, not necessary, but if we could, since we're in a transitional stage, we need to make sure the word gets out to everybody. And I believe that's all, other than to say I hope all of you have a very safe month, that you stay out of harm's way, and that you have a very happy time with your families and your friends over the next few weeks.
Awesome. Thank you,
and
Commissioner.
Afterwards.
Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sir.
I agree with everything that has been said. And even though I think that means more work for the long-range committee, I agree with that too. And thank you for the words on the shelter, and thank you and welcome Commissioner Richardson, and an outstanding meeting, Mr. Mayor. It's been wonderful. But something serious has been brought to my attention about our attorney-in-chief. So just a few words, commissioners. I promise to be brief.
Oh, these poems.
I understand that we will soon be celebrating the anniversary of the year of your birth. And since you are always engaging and sometimes full of mirth, I recognize that your service to our city is stellar, divine, and heavenly. But knowing that you will quite soon reach the pinnacle of 70, I'm sure, sir, that you're concerned about just how long you can go. But I say, no fear, cheer up. I'm sure you're younger than Tom Coe. Happy birthday, Mr. Attorney.
If not chronologically, certainly emotionally in every other way.
Well done. You never know what we're going to get out of this. You have been on this riff of poetry, man. Keep it coming.
You all laughed at the first one, so now we're going to have, we'll have one all the time. Yes.
Well done. Commissioners, a few items before we adjourn. We've been approached by some folks who are organizing what is known as 1 million cups. I don't know if you all have been familiar with this, and this would have been an item that we would have generally bought through the Economic Development Committee, but the membership on that has changed with the departure of Mayor John Marks. But anyway, 1MC is a program that offers 2 local entrepreneurs an opportunity to present their startup ideas to a diverse audience of mentors, advisors, and entrepreneurs. It's been taking place around the country for some time, and the folks down at Domey Station are going to bring the first one to Tallahassee, or begin this series in Tallahassee beginning January 7th. Is a Wednesday. It'll be from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., a morning thing, an hour-long activity, and I believe it is supposed to take place every Wednesday thereafter. But we've been approached to ask the city if we would allow our name to be used as the first sponsor, because I don't know the protocol of how we do this. There's no financial commitment. It's frankly us as the banner organization to host the first one, and I believe every week after they try to find a host where someone comes and brings.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval.
There it is. There's a motion and a second that the city adopt the inaugural kickoff 1 million cups initiative at Domey Station, the first one to take place January 7th. All those in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And then second, I wanted to give a shout out, I think we all probably would, to the Parks and Recreation staff, the streets and maintenance folks, the people who picked up the trash after the Winter Festival. You all may have noticed. Utilities. I mean, honestly, it's a citywide effort under the leadership of folks through the Parks and Recreation's communications. Michelle Bono, you did a great job, as always, hosting and moderating the parade. But a lot of work goes into this. In fact, I think they start a year out doing the theming and coming up with the running shirt, and they take submissions for design ideas, but the staff work extremely hard. And for the first time in probably 7 years, we allowed Sunday to also to be a day where folks could go through the parks in a more subdued environment where there are not so many people and enjoy the lights. They left it up for an additional day. If you remember when we went through budget cuts, we cut that from a weekend to a single day. And so they did that for day 2. So thank you to the staff who worked so diligently on that initiative. And then obviously, what a year. This is our last meeting in 2014. The first of our new commission. I honestly could not be more excited about the group that is assembled here. I think the challenges are great, but we have a commission that is to the task. We're thoughtful as a collective group. Everybody has a different perspective and a different thing that we do so well that makes the group function and work at a high caliber. And I think so long as we keep that community interest principle and number one, and we work together pulling in the same direction, I think the best, as I have now become known for saying, is still yet to come for us. So happy holidays, everybody. I hope you enjoy the family. The holidays are a time to be with loved ones and to reflect on how great things are. I'm in the middle of reading a mentor of mine's book, Norman Lear, who is iconic in his own right, and at one point in American history reached 120 million viewers and households a week, having 5 shows running at the same time. And at one point in his life, he was confronted with the potential of going from an extremely wealthy situation to potentially losing his household. And the only thing he could reflect on at that moment was, even this I get to experience, which is such an awesome thing to remember when we're in our holiday season, that ups, downs, all these things come and go, and even this we get to experience. So happy holidays, everybody. And Manager, I don't know if you have anything to say before we
Happy
adjourn.
holidays.
Perfect. With that, this meeting's adjourned.
Let's get out of here.
Parking. I want you to park on the right.
Well, what kind of parking spot is that?
Oh, this is a back-end angle parking space.
How do I use it?
Pull past this space, turn on your blinker, and back it up.
What?
Yeah, you just back it up. Oh,
okay.
You're backing it, you're backing it, you're backing it up. You're backing it, you're backing it, you're backing it up. Stay between the lines, you're backing it up.
Visit talgov.com. This could be you, gliding along the ice in downtown Tallahassee. Skate the Plaza, Clayman Plaza, now through January 5th. Get away from it all and enjoy some winter fun. You can even rent the rink. Skate times for Tallahassee on ice vary, so visit talgov.com.